Alrighty, everybody, welcome on into the Central Committee stream with your host Mike from PA. Did you guys get stuck with ads? Oops. Yeah, see, it's so weird because the ads will be fixed and then I'll be like, okay, I guess it's over, and then there was a 10-minute infomercial. Oh god, I'm so sorry, chat. I promise there won't be any more Chrome ads today. Today is the end of the ads. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Firefox is in. I didn't want to switch browsers. I didn't want to do it. I'm the hardest person to make switch browsers, but they did. They're doing it. They managed to do it. Chrome is so shit that they're making me do it. SCOTUS allowed the executive order birthright citizenship to be enforced. Oh yeah, there were supposed to be 5 court cases today. I didn't even realize that. Hold on. So what? They're gonna make a bunch of people stateless? Writing in dissent for the court's 3 liberal members, Justice Sotomayor said the majority had shamefully played along with the administration's gamesmanship in the case, which he had described as a patently unconstitutional policy of not asking the justices to bless the policy, but instead limit the power of federal judges around the country. She warned that under the ruling, no right is safe in the new legal regime this court creates. Today, the threat is to birthright citizenship. Tomorrow, a different administration may try to seize firearms from law-abiding citizens or prevent people of certain faiths from gathering to worship. If the majority holds that, absent cumbersome class action litigation, courts cannot completely enjoin even such plainly unlawful policies unless doing so is necessary to afford the formal parties complete relief. With the stroke of a pen, the president has made a solemn mockery of our Constitution. Rather than stand firm, the court gives way because such complicity should know no place in our system of law. I dissent. So guess what? Mike was right again. I told you we needed to be expanding the Supreme Court under Biden. And here it is, 6-3 for, yeah, nah, judges can't stop the, people from doing patently unconstitutional shit. When a court concludes that the executive branch has acted unlawfully, the answer is not for the court to exceed its power to. Say what? The answer is they get away with it? Wow. Unbelievable. A profoundly radical event for me happened when all the Biden Dems turned tail and abandoned court packing when they hinted they might. Oh, they never were open to it. They were never open to it. In fact, you were completely right.
Proud to be here to say to the people of the city of New York, I am seeking.
All right, okay. So Eric Adams, it looks like Cuomo is back in. There was a poll that I showed you yesterday. I was talking about evil versus smart, or like ignorant versus evil, and there was some poll that was released by a polling company that completely missed the primary by I think like 30 points. The worst polling company in the entire primary released a general election poll showing it neck and neck. So I guess Cuomo was convinced to stay in, but Eric Adams is now campaigning as well, which is very funny. Sources tell me that Andrew Cuomo is not dropping out of the mayor's race and will remain on the ballot in November. Deadline is today to drop out of independent alliance, and he won't be doing that. Sources say, well, okay. First of all, so this is the deadline to like remove himself from the ballot. This is the deadline to decline a party nomination. That's not quite the same thing as saying he's fully committed to running. Like you could be on the ballot and then not run. You know what I mean? So in other words, they want to see just how bad they lost. And what I saw, I think we talked about this yesterday, but I think we ended up saying that my favorite, I want to be honest, chat, my favorite centrist election guy goes by the name of You Michigan Voter. He is a centrist. He is a like kind of, okay, Democratic leaning centrist, right? He's honest. He's honest, which is incredibly rare among a centrist. Every centrist is constantly spinning and lying. So to see a rare, honest centrist is crazy. So I think he's being radicalized to the left, honestly. Oh yes, the most left-wing congressional district in the country. Maybe I should move to Brooklyn, chat. Did you see the Twitter ultras Suki's mom is mentally ill. Suki's mom is mentally ill. This is your brain on settlers. He's right. Raising the minimum wage should absolutely be opposed, as it is only possible because of imperialism. Raising the minimum wage so blood-sucking landlords can extract more surplus value via rent, so blood-sucking capitalists outsource more labor. This is simple economics. Hey, bitch, he's also doing a rent freeze, dumbass. Landlords can't raise the rent because he's doing a rent freeze, dumbass. This is what Lenin said about ultras. Unlike the anarchists, the Marxists recognize struggle for reforms, i.e. for measures that improve the conditions of the working people without destroying the power of the ruling class. At the same time, the Marxists wage a most resolute struggle against the reformists who directly or indirectly restrict the aims and activities of the working class to the winning of reforms. So basically what Lenin is saying is, if you could get reforms, great. Don't say that's all we can do. Don't limit us to just doing reforms, all right? But don't be anti-reform because that helps the working class. If you can raise the minimum wage, support raising the minimum wage because that'll give the workers more money and that will raise their standard of living. We're in favor of that. We're not against that. We want to help the working class. But don't tell workers that the only thing we can do is reform and the only thing we can do is class collaboration. That's also bad. That's what Lenin said. Oh my God. Like settlers, and by the way, this is settlers' brain. The reason why she's saying don't raise the minimum wage is because she's saying that American workers are the labor aristocracy, and the only reason they're able to live better lives is because we're exploiting the third world. Now, I am not saying that unequal exchange is wrong. Actually, I think unequal exchange is correct. However, it doesn't mean that our interests are diametrically opposed. In fact, our interests are very aligned because the vast majority of the wealth that comes from unequal exchange doesn't go to us. It goes to the top. In fact, that wealth allows them to suppress the working class in our country. They suppress our movements. And I think the biggest thing that you can tell if somebody's a piece of shit is, are they working towards solidarity or not? Is a person constantly talking about themselves and working against solidarity with others? That's a problem person, right? I don't care who they are or what they say they believe. If they're always seemingly breaking up solidarity, they're a problem, you know? Suki's mom doesn't matter. Suki's mom is just an example of an ultra. I made a post yesterday, or was it the day before, where I was talking about Zohran. We're also going to talk about Asmongold being a major problem. Asmongold is trying to get his audience to harass fucking Casey Tron. Oh, here's what I posted. I said, the left really needs to learn the power of dog whistles and euphemistic language in the way that Zohran deployed it. There is this really weird ultra demand that you state all your positions in the least appealing way possible. I'll give you an example of what I mean. You could say, I want to dismantle the Zionist entity. Or you could say, I want everyone in Israel and Palestine to be free and have equal rights. They mean exactly the same thing. Because what is Israel? Israel is a settler colonial, Zionist, Jewish, supremacist, ethno-nationalist project. If you get rid of the settlers, if you get rid of the ethno-nationalism, if you get away from the Jewish supremacy, if you get away from the dispossession, it's no longer Israel. It's no longer the Zionist entity. So, but when you say Zionist entity, that is something that only radical fucking people know what the fuck you're talking about. If you say, I believe in a nation, every nation should have equal rights, you're saying it in a way that everybody could agree. But it's the same fucking idea. So if you hear someone go, oh my God, I can't believe you're selling out by using language that regular people find accessible, they're a dumb fuck. Hipster communists arguing teachers, doc nurses, and nurses should have lower wages. Go ahead and take it to the picket line then. Explain it to the people and say it with your chest. You'll learn the difference between reality and books really fast. Damn, even Black Red Guard is against this shit? That's crazy. You either support flicking the end imperialism and start communism, switch to the on position right now, or you're an imperialist social fascist. Yeah, I know. The supremely corrupt court continues to make educate. Okay, bro, you're literally leaking me your own post with 0 likes? That's crazy. Come on. That's crazy. What is an ultra? Basically, ultra leftism is the idea that any existing communist or socialist country or any existing actual like movement needs to be ruthlessly critiqued given the least possible good faith. It's basically a philosophy of the schizo. It's somebody who is always holier than thou. Nothing's ever good enough. Nothing is worth fighting for. We have to, you can't do things in stages. Everything has to be done all at once. You have to do the social revolution and the economic revolution and the cultural revolution all instantaneously at the same time. If you don't solve every problem instantly, then you're actually just as bad as the capitalist. That's what an ultra is. A huge win for the Trump limiting university injunctions. I think he meant universal injunctions. Court said it's possible lawsuits brought by the states could still require nationwide relief. This is the end of the republic. Yeah, this is the end. This is kind of one of those things that does herald the end of the republic. Is it a critique of Kat punching left? No, because she was attacking another camp. Her campaign manager was attacking Zohran the week before the election and saying he was being an anti-Semite. They were being the wreckers. I was putting them in their place. Do you understand the difference? Why are those of us in the U.S. celebrating MAS's victory in Bolivia? As socialists, we recognize capitalism, a global system that requires a global resistance to defeat. Our comrades' victory is ours as well. As Marcella says, oh my God. Holy based. Summary of Lenin's left communism? Oh, no. Listen. If I ever feel like I want to watch this video, which is probably really good, you guys are getting punished. Asmund Gold went over Zohran's
and again,
platform.
like, this is stuff that I agree. Let's see here. What would I agree with? End cash bail. I don't know about this. Repeal the walking while trans ban. I don't even know what that is. Decriminalize sex work. I think that's okay. Legalize marijuana. I agree with that. Safe injection sites. This sounds like bullshit. Restrict solitary confinement. I don't really know about this. Enact elder parole. I don't know about that.
Why does he talk about stuff? Can you not read? You don't know shit. Walking while trans ban probably refers to like different laws that exist on the books that are about gender performance, and like saying that like a man wearing a dress is committing some sort of lewd conduct, right? So that can be used against trans people by law enforcement to harass them. Safe ejection sites are a good idea because they're harm reduction. They basically take people from off the streets and they say, hey, if you inject drugs here, then you won't be punished. And what this actually does is it reduces overdoses, exposes more people to social workers and possible diversion options, treatment. It's a really effective way to reduce death and lower addiction, which is supposed to be what Asmund Gold wants, right? Elder parole is basically the idea that when somebody gets to like 70, 80 years old, the odds are that they're going to commit more violent crimes is much lower, and that we should be in favor of giving them parole from prison because they no longer represent a threat to society.
Decriminalize simple drug possession. I agree with that. Repeal all mandatory minimum sentences. I disagree with this. Reduce maximum sentences with retroactive effect. I also disagree with that. I think we need to have more people. Guys, I'm a big fan. So this is going to sound bad. I'm a big fan of putting a lot of people in jail. That's what I think we need to do. We've got a big problem. We've got a lot of people causing issues. The solution is we put all of them in jail. Anybody who's causing problems, you're shitting on the street. Okay, jail. You're selling.
By the way, chat, this is just, first of all, police state, number one. Number two, it gives police basically the authority to just attack people for all sorts of shit and lie about them. And then if there's any kind of minor infraction, putting people in prison is extremely expensive. It also makes them more antisocial because our prisons are actual shitholes that make people more traumatized and more violent and more criminal because they're not good rehabilitation centers. I think, for example, if you have a house and it's full of pests and vermin, you should go to prison because you're inflicting it on your neighbors. Shitting in the street is just as much of a public health hazard as having a house filled with rotting rats and cockroaches. But honestly, I don't want Asmund Gold to go to prison. You guys should read what living in an active cockroach infestation does to your health. Like, if you have active pests, like a major infestation of rats and cockroaches, you should see what that does to your health.
You're selling fake IDs, jail. You're going, you skip the subway fare. You save 79 cents. Believe it or not, that's right. And so that's the way I would handle it. Safe injection sites, lower drug harm, and innocents getting involved. I think, honestly, like, I'd probably have to wait and see. I mean, in my opinion, I think that they need to, instead of having safe injection...
I think what you should understand about Asmongold is that he's a sadistic nihilist. He doesn't care what the truth is about anything or whether things work. And he doesn't really believe in evidence. He's an anti-intellectual. So because he's an anti-intellectual, because he's sadistic, because he wants to maximize harm and not reduce harm, he has the views that he has. And the thing about him is, like, my general feeling towards somebody like Asmongold is that associating with him should be seen as exactly what it is, which is encouraging harm. What a fucking loser, dude.
New York.
What a fucking loser. By his own logic, he should be in jail. I mean, like, he should definitely be in prison. That is true.
Skin's also pretty tan. People are getting uncomfortable. How are you going to convince Mr. Mamdani? A lot of people see you, and they assume that you wish death to all Jews. How are you going to convince them you don't? But you do view Palestinians as people. I mean, that makes people uncomfortable, obviously. But do you love Israel? How much do you love Israel? You are obviously Muslim, so I don't really... That's kind of... People don't like that. Your skin's also pretty tan. People are getting uncomfortable. How are you going to convince them that you're not a terrorist? When are you going to Tel Aviv? When are you going to Tel Aviv? Andrew Cuomo is representing Netanyahu. Why don't you do that? Is it because you don't love Israel? Why don't you love Israel? Do you think that Israel should exist as a Jewish ethno-state? You seem to think that it's okay to criticize Israel. Why? Why is that? It's because you're anti-Semitic.
And with that, let's get into the coverage, the Zohran coverage. Look at the mainstream media molding and the MAGA molding. I saw a clip of Asmongold talking about Zohran and be like, oh, I like the guy. He's such a fucking moron, dude. He's so fucking stupid, dude. Like, legitimately one of the dumbest fuckers to ever live. Like, what can you even say? The centrist Dems are raging and the MAGAs are molding. This is the one.
I would say in New York City, my plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr.
You got my vote.
By the way, chat, the only, like, you know what? Thank you for bending the knee. Bend the knee more. Asmongold, does it feel good to bend the knee to the wokes? Doesn't it feel good to bend the knee to Hassan and myself? Doesn't it feel good to bend the knee? Don't you like it? You should just bend the knee.
There it is. It's that simple. There's a lot of things I disagree with this guy about, but at least he's actually trying, right? Yeah, he's got the right answer. They're openly saying, yes, we're gonna go over to Israel. You think this guy's so horrible? Then stop putting up people that put Israel ahead of the United States. As a show of force and as a show of protest. It's a show of defiance. It is a show of defiance. It is a protest.
It's so fucking crazy that this guy, I mean, he hates us because, and he uses Israel defenders to attack us. And now he's going to go out there and be like, oh yeah, the candidate that you guys work so hard for. Oh yeah, no, guys, you should support. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? You're pro-Israel. You're pro-Israel. You've tried to defeat us using Israel's lobby. What are you doing, man? He's so stupid.
Vote. It is a few. It is a no, I'm not going to sit inside of this little box that you put me in. I'm going to go off the rails. And unless you want to follow me, you're going to lose. Stop giving.
Could you steel man rising wages in New York City has harmful effects in the global south? No, because there is no steel man. Because it's built on an entirely faulty premise, and it's directly from the CIA to create anti-solidarity between the West and the working classes in the developing world. In fact, I think if you think that's a good idea or you should just fucking leave forever. Honestly, just become a Republican. Just become a conservative at this point. Like, I don't want you to be around me in any way.
Candidates that prioritize Israel over New York City. New York City's a PvP server. There's crazy people everywhere in New York City.
New York City is the safest major metro in the US. He's such a fucking idiot, man. Like, he's an actual moron. Hold on, chat. I had the Brad Lander interview, but I guess I don't have it. I thought I had it. I wanted to watch it next. Also, the US dollar is collapsing in value. This is who the centrists say that Mamdani can't be mayor. We need to keep this guy as mayor.
You can look in a jewelry box of this nature, maybe a simple jewelry box, but if you look through it closely, you don't know what your child may be hiding. For instance, a gun. Look at picture frames and behind them, cameras. Try to determine what's taking place. Behind a picture frame, you can find bullets. You should always, when your child brings in his popular knapsack with many different locations, look through it to see what exactly is your child carrying in addition to a book. Something simple as a crack pipe, something simple as a baby doll. Could be just a baby doll, but also it could be a place where you can secrete or hide drugs. Run your hands over the pillows and see if you feel anything that's unusual. Like a pillow like this where the button is a perfect invitation to hide something. And I felt something bumpy. I would reach in, see what it is. Just look and see what's inside your bookcases. It could be more than just books. Perfect place to hide cocaine. You can look in a jewelry box of this nature, maybe.
Does anybody have the Jake Tapper interview? Is this the full thing? Okay, this'll work.
I'm so proud to be here to say to the people of the city of New York, I am seeking re-election to be your mayor. And I told all of you this was going to be the most interesting political campaign in the history of the city. It didn't stop on June 24. It started on June 24, and it would keep going into November 4.
The New York mayor's race is officially underway after the incumbent Mayor Eric Adams kicked off his re-election bid as an independent. He is going to face off in November against, among others, Zohran Mamdani, who declared victory after Tuesday's Democratic primary. There's also Curtis Sliwa, who won the uncontested Republican primary. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who lost in the Democratic primary, is also considering an independent bid. Let's bring in New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, who also ran in the Democratic primary. Lander cross-endorsed Mamdani in the primary. They have ranked choice voting there, and he's now supporting him in the general election. Comptroller Lander, thanks for joining us. So Mamdani is already facing a slew of attacks from Republicans, some of them quite bigoted and offensive. Today, Republican Congressman Andy Ogles of Tennessee posted a letter that he sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi, in which he writes in part, quote, Zohran Little Mohammed Mamdani is an anti-Semitic, socialist, communist who will destroy the great city of New York. He needs to be deported, which is why I'm calling for him to be subject to a denaturalization proceeding. He is obviously a naturalized citizen, but he is an immigrant. What's your reaction to that attack?
I mean, it's appalling. He has faced death threats during the campaign. A city council member called for his deportation. It's just gross, racist bigotry. But meanwhile, he's running an optimistic, upbeat campaign for a New York where everybody belongs. And I feel proud as the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in New York City to be supporting somebody who would be the first Muslim mayor. Like, what could be more New York City than that?
Well, let me ask you about that, because as you know better than I, New York City is home to the largest Jewish community outside of Israel, and as the highest-ranking Jew in New York, I'm sure you've been hearing quite a bit from your fellow Jews about concerns that they have about Mamdani, such as he seems to not believe that Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state. What do you tell your Jewish friends and
As a Jewish state, he seems to believe the South doesn't have the right to exist as a white Christian state. And he seems to think that black people shouldn't live in second-class citizenship in South Africa. What do you tell your Afrikaner and your Southern Baptist supporters
and constituents?
Yeah, and I take it real seriously. I'm a proud Jewish New Yorker. I'm, raising 2 Jewish kids in New York City. I'm very anxious about the rise of anti-Semitism, and I want a mayor who will keep Jews and all New Yorkers safe. And I would not be supporting Zohran Mamdani if I wasn't confident that he would. I don't agree with him 100% on Israel and Palestine. We're not running, though, for foreign policy. We're running for the city of New York. And he is deeply committed to not just increasing protection against hate crimes, but against anti-Semitism, increasing by 800% what is spent on making sure that all Jews and all New Yorkers are safe to pray, to worship, to travel, to work, to walk around their neighborhoods free from fear. And I'm confident people will see that as they focus on the race. Meanwhile, you have these other folks who are trying to weaponize anti-Semitism like Donald Trump did in his tweet attacking Zohran, in which, again, he called Chuck Schumer a Palestinian. These are offensive. It's like treating Jews as pawns for political purposes, and it's gross bigotry. And New Yorkers are going to show, just like they did in the primary, that we're better than that.
It would be nice if what happens in the Middle East stays in the Middle East. But obviously, there have been a lot of protests against what the Israeli government is doing. And there has been some anti-Semitic violence by pro-Palestinian activists in the United States. This year, we've seen it at Governor Shapiro's house in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, in Boulder, Colorado.
That guy was just a schizo, not doing it for Palestine. He was literally just a mentally ill schizo. You can only say that the assassination of Israeli embassy workers, but he wasn't Jewish. He was a German Christian who voluntarily worked for Israel's embassy. Now, you can say what you will, but he didn't shoot him because he was a Jewish person. He shot him because he wasn't. He shot him because he worked for the Israeli embassy. You could say it's anti-Israeli violence, but that is not anti-Semitism, like Jake.
Colorado, here in Washington, D.C., when Mamdani was asked by the Bulwark's Tim Miller if he had any issue with the phrase globalize the Intifada, which a lot of Jews do because they think it means bring anti-Semitic violence from Israel and the Middle East to all over the world, he was asked if it made him uncomfortable, Mamdani. Here was his response.
What I hear in so many is a desperate desire for equality and equal rights in standing up for Palestinian human rights. And I think what's difficult also is that the very word has been used by the Holocaust Museum when translating the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising into Arabic, because it's a word that means struggle.
Sure.
And as a Muslim man who grew up post 9/11, I'm all too familiar in the way in which Arabic words can be twisted, can be distorted, can be used to justify any kind of meaning.
So I've never seen this happen before. The U.S. Holocaust Museum responded to what he said there, posting the statement saying,
well, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is the weaponization of the Holocaust to commit another genocide, which is one of the most depraved things I've ever seen in my life. And there truly is no bottom. They said the Holocaust Museum on their own website for years and years and years, and their Arab translation called it the Warsaw Ghetto Intifada. And they were forced to change it within the last 6 months by Zionists who were humiliated by the fact pro-Palestinian advocates were pointing it out. And so they had to translate it to something that actually is even more radical in favor. They use a different word, which is actually part of the abbreviation for Hamas.
and quote, exploiting the museum and the Warsaw Ghetto uprising to sanitize the phrase globalize the Intifada is outrageous and especially offensive to survivors. Since 1987, Jews have been attacked and murdered under its...
This is, by the way, Brad Lander. By the way, here we are 5 minutes in, still talking about this. And Brad Lander, because he's a Jewish Zionist, is constantly pretending that the fucking delusions of Zionists is some sort of real thing. I don't care if you have some bullshit beliefs about Jewish people being targeted by Zohran. There is no evidence. It's a delusion. You're being delusional.
Banner, meaning globalize the Intifada, all leaders must condemn its use and the abuse of history. Does it make you uncomfortable with New York, the epicenter for so much of this pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel protest, some of which has been anti-Semitic, some of which has been violent, not most of it, but some of it? Does it make you uncomfortable that he won't condemn that phrase?
Well, first, the phrase globalize the Intifada absolutely makes me uncomfortable. And I mean, I named my son after a leader of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. And I've made real clear, people might mean something different, but all I can hear when you say that is open season on Jews after what happened in Boulder and what happened in D.C. I go to a lot of Jewish communal events, and I don't want to keep looking over my shoulder. And I made that real clear. He clarified it's not language that he uses or I think has ever used, and that he doesn't believe in policing other people's speech. That said, the question for me is, will he be a mayor who works hard to keep all Jews, including Jews like me, who do believe in the vision of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, safe? And I am confident that he will. And what I hope we can...
This is why liberal Zionists in your ranks, are just such a detriment. There's such a detriment. What Brad Lander should be saying is, these beliefs have absolutely no merit. And I'm a Jewish man, and Zohran respects and loves Jewish people. You're being nonsensical. Let's talk about the city of New York. Jake Tapper, you fucking clown.
Can do, as he and I have tried to demonstrate over the last couple of weeks, is show how we could listen better to each other. He pledged on election night to work harder to understand and listen to people and make clear he will have everyone's back. We're not going to resolve how people feel about the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, but I really do believe that we can show that we'll have a mayor who's going to keep everyone safe, who will listen to Jews. But we also want to make sure we're listening to Muslim New Yorkers, Iranian New Yorkers. It is an incredibly diverse city. And what's happening right now, I think, is that people are trying to weaponize the conflict, even weaponize anti-Semitism in a pretty dangerous way. So what I hope we can do is turn the temperature down, make clear there's no room for violence or for hate, and give him room to build some unity around a vision of the city in which everyone, again, mostly wants an affordable home in a neighborhood they feel safe in with a great school for their kids. That's why people voted for him in big numbers and why I'm confident they will again in November.
New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, thank you so much. Appreciate your time today, sir.
Thank you.
What a pathetic interview. What a pathetic fucking interview. Where's the eye roll? How far back is it?
We're not going to resolve how people feel about the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, but I really do believe that we can show that we'll have a mayor who's going to keep everyone safe, who will listen to Jews. But we also want to make sure we're listening to Muslim New Yorkers, Iranian.
Here's kind of how I feel about this stuff. If you see that someone is a Zionist, even a liberal Zionist, they're pretty much not a very, Brad Lander, if he's going to go out there and take the bullets for Zohran, I mean, I'm not gonna say don't do it, but look at the way this interview went. 8 minutes trying to pump up the idea of anti-Semitism, and Lander didn't treat it like it was ridiculous. He treated it like it was real. He's giving it oxygen with his cowardly fucking behavior. I'm sorry, guys, but this is fucking garbage. We need, learn the lesson of Corbyn. If we let them pretend like this shit is real for 6 months, it's going to create a cloud over Zohran that these Zionist scum like. It's time for us to double down. I am not loyal to Israel. I'm loyal to New York. Anybody tell you to be loyal to Israel is fucking weird. Say it loud. Say it proud. IDF soldiers. It's a killing field. IDF soldiers ordered to shoot deliberately at unarmed Gazans waiting for humanitarian aid. This is, even to the highest possible bar, genocide. IDF officers and soldiers told Haaretz they were ordered. Officers were ordered? So that's a senior command decision. This is genocide. This isn't war crimes by individuals. This is genocide. They were ordered to fire at unarmed crowds, even when no threat was present. Hundreds have been killed, prompting the military prosecution to call for a review into possible war crimes. Commanders ordered troops to shoot at crowds. Did you talk about Sean DeBlack's new harassment campaign by Ethan? My general feeling is this. Everybody, I haven't got a chance to speak to Frogan yet. I think she's off, she's off the internet. I want to, I would love to talk to her about what she's going through and how I can help. I have spoken to Denims and Casey Tron. So just speaking, based on those conversations, I am very, they want to fight this with all their strength and then get sanctions against Ethan Klein and his attorney for criminal abuse of the justice system and malicious intent. And I would like to get together everybody who's being threatened by this to start filing bar complaints against his settler attorney. So they're not looking to settle, as far as I'm concerned. They're looking to get a courtroom win. They feel like the entire streaming space is being threatened by Ethan Klein. And what's funny about this is Ethan Klein did the exact thing he's claiming is illegal. He reacted to the entire content cop live on his stream, including the moment after it got released. He did the exact same thing that he's accusing them of doing. So I would not be surprised if he also gets sued based on his own. Now, iDubbbz did not watch his stream live. iDubbbz made a produced video about Ethan Klein's produced video. Okay? He did not do a live stream of the whole thing. So if Ethan Klein is right, that reaction is copyright, he's a copyright infringer himself under his own logic. So he has unclean hands. And he said he was a legend because he did it. So that in and of itself contradicts his whole idea about his rights being violated. You can't violate people's rights and then go, oh, you're such a bad person for doing exactly what I said was okay to do. I think he removed that video. Why are you I mean, he lost 1.8 million views. What video did he remove? So even under his own logic, it doesn't even make sense. I am a legend, guys. I'm a legend. Doing the exact same thing he's tried to sue other people for doing. All right, let's watch Zohran interview on CNN.
Mayor Eric Adams formally announcing tonight that he's going to go head-to-head with the Democrats' new rising star, Zohran Mamdani, as an independent candidate in the mayor's race in the biggest city in America. Now, we're going to speak to Mamdani live in just a moment. But first, take a listen to Mayor Adams'
I
attack.
think he deleted all the episodes with Kavanaugh. Yeah, he deleted all the Kavanaugh mentions from the other lawsuit he just lost. Oh, guys, he didn't lose it. He settled, and his settlement was a complete apology and deleting all the videos and giving money to Kavanaugh. That's, ladies and gentlemen, what we call a full-blown defeat.
Right out of the gate today.
This election is a choice between a candidate with a blue collar and one with a silver spoon. A choice between dirty fingernails and manicured nails. This is not a city where you use idealism to state you're giving everything to everyone for free. There's no dignity in someone giving you everything for free. There's dignity in giving you a job so you can provide for your family and the opportunities that you deserve. So this is not a city of handouts. This is a city of hands up.
Adams taking direct aim at the core of Mamdani's campaign. Mamdani has made economics the heart of it, right? Things like freezing rent on nearly half of the city's apartments, free bus service, free childcare for children under 5, and city-run grocery stores. Okay, well, the Adams news comes as our Isaac Dover is just reporting that former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who, of course, was crushed in that primary, who conceded it to Mamdani, will not drop out of the race before tomorrow's deadline. So now this raises crucial questions about whether he will also be running in the general election as an independent. But Mamdani's likely and seismic win over Cuomo in the primary is generating national headlines about him being a new political star, creating a movement. And from the left-leaning Nation magazine, they write the Democratic Party establishment should follow Zohran Mamdani's example. Out front now, New York State Assemblyman and presumptive Democratic nominee for mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani. And so much appreciate your time. A whirlwind week for you, I think, to put it lightly. Okay, so, you know, everyone else is putting their view on this, of what this means, okay? Your victory. What do you think it means?
I think it means that we are ready in the most expensive city in the United States to have 5 boroughs that New Yorkers can actually afford. And this entire race was about the question of affordability. And ultimately, I have run a campaign that speaks about the tools that city government actually has to deliver that affordability in the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the world. And it's time that we have a mayoral administration that follows through and actually delivers that.
All right, so I want to talk about some of that, but first the breaking news. Isaac Dover is reporting that Andrew Cuomo is not dropping out of the general election race, right? And it's kind of a willy-wonny, but the deadline's tomorrow.
Open
Is this a surprise
presents with the 100 bomb. More presents for all. Happy birthday, everybody. Oilers in. That actually brings us to 9,904. Sorry. Open presents. Thank you so much for being such an amazing supporter of the stream. I appreciate you. You're the best. Thank you for using your generational wealth to support us. Is this Open Presents Xi Jinping or something? They gift 100 every day. I mean, they've gifted like twice as much to Hassan. I don't know who you are, Open Presents, but thank you so much, man. We definitely appreciate it. I appreciate you supporting Casey as well. Picture You Karma. Thank you for the 10 tier ones.
Andrew's decision or my decision matters less than the decision that voters already took on Tuesday night, where we won from Bay
There's
Ridge.
another 100. I haven't had an Oiler like that. Like, there's a couple Oilers chat that are pretty long. There's a couple of viewers of mine that are really big supporters, but this is just wild. I finally got a free sub. Thank you. Sorry, I'm an 80K in debt. I can't subscribe. Honestly, chat, I want you to take care of yourself. You know, if you are in financial difficulty, I don't want you to give me money. You know, like that would be insane of me to expect. But if you aren't, and you're a work from home fucking bullshit job having ass liberal fucking piece of shit, you better be giving me as many fucking subs as you can afford. I'm poor as fuck, but I'm subscribing to you in spirit. Thank you. Viewership is the most important thing. It really is. You know, if you show up and you're a consistent watcher, even though I don't run ads, you're helping boost the stream. If you're, you know, as long as you're participating in the community, you're hanging out, that's the most important thing. Subscribing is something that I know you'll do when you're in the position to be able to. And I'm doing great. Obviously, I haven't reached all my goals in life as far as I don't own a home. I still have student loan debt. You get my point. I have been very fortunate over the past couple of years, so I really appreciate all of you guys for all the support.
To Diker Heights, to Harlem, to Washington Heights, we saw a mandate delivered for a new generation of leadership. And
for example, if you are a Chinese student who has had your student visa restricted by the Trump administration, and you have some credit cards, no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Before you get deported, speaking of goals, Hot Tub Stream, I said, look to the east, look to September. You know what I actually owe you guys? Denims and I owe you a Rage Room stream. I need a Rage Room stream. What's the Rage Room stream? There's this like business in LA where they just set up a room for you to come in and just destroy everything. John Favreau, who blocked me years ago for making fun of him for being a Beto supporter and telling Elizabeth Warren to get a DNA test, is now admitting that Israel is committing war crimes. It's infuriating and disgusting that the more elected Democrats have criticized the mayoral candidate's opposition to the Israeli government than the Israeli government's intentional slaughter of civilians admitted to by Israeli soldiers themselves. What are we doing? The answer is genocide and fascism in the Democratic Party. That's what. All right, let's watch Zohran so we don't fucking have an aneurysm from rage. And thank you so much for all the support, guys. We are one sub away from a hype train, or 200 bits away from a hype train. And I think we'll be like level fucking like 20 or something. So somebody else sub or resub. Hurry up.
I am so proud.
Ham and Fist just dropped a 50 fucking bomb. Ham and Fist, Calm Like a Tom, Open Presents. You guys have been tremendously huge supporters for so long. Thank you for supporting the stream. I really do appreciate it. Calm Like a Tom, thank you, man. You didn't have to gift any. I was just calling you out because you've been such a big supporter.
Proud and excited to continue to build on that mandate with an ever-expanding coalition, one that has now included the endorsements of Congressman Jerry Nadler, of State Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel, and Manhattan Borough President, soon-to-be Controller, Mark Levine. And ultimately, that is a coalition that will continue to expand through November.
Right, so you're saying no matter what, I mean, if Andrew Cuomo's in, it's not like a redo where you're worried?
No, not at all. I mean, we did it once, and it turned out pretty well.
All right, so now can we talk about the policy? The policy is what stood out to a lot of people. But right, I said the freezing rents on half of the apartments, free bus service, the free childcare, and the city-run grocery stores. How do you pay for that?
Let's go through it. So for the first thing, freezing the rent, that's not something that requires any fiscal output from the city. It's something that's determined by the Rent Guidelines Board, composed of 9 members. The mayor picks each of those members. They determine each year whether rents rise or whether they stay the same. The previous mayoral administration froze the rent 3 times. So this has clear historical precedent. When it comes to city-run grocery...
Even Adams. You're saying Adams.
No, this is prior
to
Adams. He's the current one who has raised it 9% on
Right.
those same New Yorkers, pushing them out of their homes. City-run grocery stores, I've proposed a pilot program of 1 store in each borough. These are 5 stores in total. The total cost of this is $60 million. This is less than half the cost of what the city is already set to spend.
I would like some explainer on the result of the birthright ruling. It's basically federal judges don't have power over the president. That's what it is.
Subsidy program for corporate supermarkets that has no guarantee of cheaper prices or collective bargaining agreements or even accepting
So
SNAP
you're
or
not
WIC.
looking at some like Soviet Union grocery stores on every corner that are going to be run by the government.
No, what I'm looking at is how to solve the very clear twin crises of affordability when you go to the grocery store and food deserts, which disproportionately impact Black and brown New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, where I've heard directly from New Yorkers who say, why is it that I can find 6 fast food restaurants in a 5-block radius, but I can't find a place to buy groceries?
But five boroughs, 5 grocery stores. But that can't be the goal.
Well, I mean, the idea
Is the goal you want them on every? I mean, but in New York, things do go. There's a nail salon on every corner. There's a grocery store on almost every other corner.
I think ultimately I'm guided by outcomes. If this pilot succeeds in guaranteeing cheaper groceries, as I think it will be, then yes, it should scale up. If it doesn't succeed, then no, it shouldn't, because what New Yorkers want are results. And then it comes to making buses free and universal childcare.
Right.
These are things that cost around $700 million and let's say about $5 or $6 billion. Significant amounts of money.
Huge amounts of money.
But have to be understood in the context of a $113 billion municipal budget, a $252 billion.
We already have places that give away free food. They're called food banks. Like this is already something that is happening, but there are still food deserts. And if the city can run grocery stores and put them in food deserts and then not lose money on it, but give people access to high quality produce in places where the market is failing, that raises the standard of living, and it's going to have all sorts of other positive knock-on effects, whether it's health, public health, whether it is development for children, raising quality of life directly. And for $60 million in the world's richest city, I think that's a fucking bargain. Meanwhile, they're giving $140 million with no strings attached to private supermarkets.
Our state budget, and we put forward a plan to pay for these and more to start Trump-proofing our city through 2 major revenue streams. Increasing the top corporate tax rate of New York to match that of New Jersey, that raises $5 billion, and increasing income taxes on the top 1% of New Yorkers who make $1 million or more a year by 2%. Both of these things, after they come to fruition, you're still paying less than you did before Trump.
Okay. On the city tax, though, and I know that takes effect with people right now, that top rate of people of 50,000 or more. So if you're going to be adding 2% to people at $1 million, that I just did the math, right? Well, but that's going to be an increase of 51% of what they pay now. I'm not saying cry for them. I'm saying if they leave, you're not going to get that money. And when you increase someone's taxes by 51%, aren't a lot of people going to leave?
We're saying we're increasing it by 2% of what it is right now. And ultimately, I'm guided by the facts. The Fiscal Policy Institute did an analysis of the top 1% of New Yorkers and found that they leave the city at 1/4 the rate of other income categories. And when they leave to what are called high tax states, New Jersey, California. So what it then comes down to is, why are they leaving? Is it fiscal policy or is it actually quality of life? And I've heard that time and again from wealthier New Yorkers, from all New Yorkers.
So it's talk. They're going to go to Florida and all you think is talk.
In 2021, when I came to the state assembly, we had the same fight to fund public schools, to raise taxes on billionaires and corporations. We were told millionaires would flee. And we now have more millionaires.
Okay, so the New York Times is saying that Mayor Adams is trying to gather business leaders to support him, to say this is going to be bad. And Bill Ackman, billionaire hedge fund manager, of course you know of him, New Yorker, he said he agrees with you that the city's broken, okay, but he has a real problem with your economic policies. He said the ability for New York City to offer services for the poor and needy, let alone the average New Yorker, is entirely dependent on New York City being a business-friendly environment and a place where wealthy residents are willing to spend 183 days, the amount you need to be taxed, and assume...
By the way, this isn't even right. This explanation you just gave is not even right. It's just like, she had to say 1.1 million so you could get a 2,000. So like, this is a bad explanation. It's like, a person making $1 million a year will pay $0. That's a better explanation than this. If you make 1.1, you pay an extra 2. If you make $1 million a year, you will pay nothing. $1 million. You'll be okay, man. You'll be okay.
the associated tax burden. Unfortunately, both have already started making arrangements for the exits. So you just think that that isn't going to add up. And by the way, that corporate tax rate that you're talking about, that's a big increase.
That's matching 7.25% going to 11.5%. And the point of it is that if it works for our regional neighbor, why can't it work for us? And with Bill Ackman, this is someone who put $500,000 into Andrew Cuomo's super PAC, someone to whom clearly money is not an issue. And ultimately, even for him, life would get better. Because what I'm looking to use this money for is to make the quality of life across the city better.
Okay, so when people say democratic socialist, right? And I'm curious what you think this means. I mean, do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And I think ultimately the definition...
Do you like capitalism? No! I just love that I know Lolo Overruled is just sitting there mauling because he's got to get a Briani tattoo on his body for this man.
Mission for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And that's what I'm focused on, is dignity and taking on income inequality. And for too long, politicians have pretended that we're spectators to that crisis of affordability. We're actually actors, and we have the choice to exacerbate it, like Mayor Adams has done, or to respond to it and resolve it, like I'm planning to do.
Okay. So, for people who say that America was built on, and a lot of immigrants, and obviously you speak from an immigrant experience. I mean, you came as a young child, but you speak to a lot of people who came much more recently, that they come to America because they believe in capitalism. They believe that if they work hard and make a lot of money, that that's part of the American dream. Do you think that's not part of the American dream?
I think the dream at its core is a dream for stability in one's life. And what you're saying, that you work hard enough and that you then reap the benefits, too many New Yorkers, and Americans for that matter, are working 8 hours and then still feeling like they haven't made enough money to keep living in the city they call home. And ultimately, what I'm focused on is making the city affordable for everyone, not to win an ideological argument, but to deliver on the mandate of this
So when Mayor
campaign.
Adams, you just heard him come out and he said soup, silver spoon. He talked about manicured nails to refer to you, right? I was looking at him. You can show him to everybody. What do you say to him?
I understand what he's doing. He's trying to distract from his own record. His is a record where he raised rents on more than 2 million New Yorkers by 9%, and he's considering another 8% increase. His is a record of raising the water bill to the highest it's been in 13 years, supporting Con Edison when they wanted to increase New Yorkers' gas and electric bills by $65 a month. I would much rather talk about me than I would about his record if I was him. And so that's what he's going to be doing over the next few months. And we will continue to remind New Yorkers what's on the ballot. It's affordability.
I just want to play.
As much as I like the idea of an exit tax, talking about an exit tax right now is actually really bad timing. I want you to think about that while you ponder. See if you could come up with why that is on your own. I'm gonna test you. See if you can figure it out.
Because that's what this is. Play more of Mamdani telling his story.
So to quote the words of a famous New Yorker, allow me to reintroduce myself. I was born in Kampala, Uganda, in East Africa. I was given my middle name Kwame by my father, who named me after the first prime minister of Ghana.
I moved to this city when I was 7. This is the city I fell in love with, the city where I got my citizenship.
He's been in the New York Assembly for 4 years, and before that, he was an aspiring rapper under the name Mr. Cardamom.
By the way, chat, all of this, there's two elements to it. How you handle it is this humanizing or is this mocking? So as a politician, you have to handle this stuff really well. By the way, this is such a good song for a politician. It's celebrating the nani, celebrating your grandmother. I made a rap about how much I love my grandmother. Like, come on! It's so smart!
Once you do it, it's out there. It never comes back. It's there.
Didn't think it was going to be on CNN.
It's there, and there it is. So what do you say to people who look at your background and they wonder? They say, okay, rising star you may be, but this is the largest city in America, $112 billion budget, 8 million people, and a hell of a lot of problems. And they say, okay, whatever the future may be, you're not ready now.
I would say that a campaign offers a glimpse of what an administration would look like. And we built a campaign the likes of which the city has not seen in a long time. We started with 2 full-time employees and now are managing 50,000 volunteers. At the beginning of this race, there were questions of whether we'd get 50,000 votes. And yet we had 50,000
volunteers.
50,000 volunteers who knocked on 1.5 million doors, made 2.1 million phone calls. And ultimately, it's a story of not only being able to inspire people, but absorb that inspiration and build an organization. And I think that's also the story of what it means to run a city, that you are ultimately responsible, but you're also determined by hiring the best and the brightest. And that's what I will be doing in City Hall. I'll be hiring those that have a clear track record of excellence, of results that come from a wide variety of mayoral administrations, and finally bring public excellence back into the public sector.
All right, so you caught a lot of attention for confronting Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, about the deportation policies, which...
By the way, Barack Obama ran for president like 6 months after being elected to his first term in the Senate. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was a state senator. He failed in a run for Congress. He got defeated by some machine Chicago politician. He ran for the Senate, served for like 5 minutes, and then announced his presidential run. I mean, he was legitimately on the same level as Zohran is now to run for president. Maddie just saw the Pete poll. Buttigieg's level of African-American support is not ideal. 0%. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez getting less support among Hispanics than Newsom is very funny. And I want you to know, chat, that AOC is the front runner. Pete Buttigieg is it's AOC or Pete. Everything else is white noise. And you could go ahead and clip this. You can go ahead and you can go ahead and see. The only thing that will make it not AOC or Pete is if AOC decides not to run. So that's the reality. If you think I'm wrong, you're wrong. You're just stupid. You actually have too much media brain. Do I think it's smart for AOC to run in 2028? Why? Of course, it's always smart to run. If you're in the position to run, you should run. Although I kind of like... I could be convinced that she should run for Senate if we have an actual left-wing candidate to get behind who has a chance. Like if somebody rises up who's a good alternative to her and she decides to run for Senate, I'd be okay with that. But as of right now, she is it. Dodge my question. Which question? What's your question? Was he dog shit for America? Yes, he was fucking terrible. That's because he was a neoliberal the entire time and Zohran isn't. Obama was terrible for the country because of his ideology, not his experience.
Impact here in New York. Here you are.
Do you believe in the First Amendment? Do you believe in the First Amendment, Tom Homan?
So that moment went viral. All right. Then after the primary, Homan was asked about your plan, which is on your website. You said that you would end the city's cooperation with ICE agents that has been going on under Mayor Adams. And he has spoken out. Here's what he said.
Good luck with that. Federal law trumps him every day, every hour of every minute. We're going to be in New York City. Game on. We're coming.
Game on. He's coming. What do you say?
That I'm going to be here to stand up and fight back. And unlike the current mayor, I'm not going to be working alongside the Trump administration to build the single largest deportation force in American history. I'm going to actually represent each and every New Yorker. And that includes immigrant New Yorkers. And that means standing up for the laws of this city, like our sanctuary city policies, which have kept New Yorkers safe for decades and were defended by Republicans and Democrats alike for years until we got this mayor who fearmongered about them so extensively.
Does that involve the NYPD?
It means that the NYPD would actually serve New Yorkers and not assist ICE in their operations. We recently saw ICE agents
So they would not assist ICE?
Not assisting ICE, because ultimately their job is public safety. And I know officers who are signing up to take on serious crimes, not to be a part of the force that is arresting a pastor who's peacefully observing the arrest of a migrant at Federal Plaza.
All right, so a moment ago you talked about how you didn't know if you'd get 50,000 votes and you ended up with 50,000 volunteers. They knocked on doors. There are many in the country who might look at that and say, okay, that makes me think of somebody else. Somebody else who took on I'm trying to think of the right word to use, but somebody who expected to win and therefore didn't campaign that hard and lost. And the person who did that was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? Famously also here in New York. She endorsed you early. She helped you. She just spoke to Manu Raju, our Manu Raju, a few moments ago. She said the Democratic Party needs to pay attention to your success right now. Here's what she just told him.
We have a choice to listen to that message that people are sending us or not. This isn't just about Mr. Mamdani as an individual. This is about the message that the people of New York City are trying to send to our party.
So there's now talk, that your victory puts her in a whole new light, right? It puts her and Bernie Sanders, not that they were seen as fringe, but they were seen as a wing of the party. And that instead of being a wing, that becomes more of the center, and that you are part of that. Do you see it that way? And do you see those who say, look, your victory propels her to a presidential run in 2028?
She's been an inspiration, and it's been an honor to be represented by her as an assembly member in Astoria for many years. And I think about a senior who works at a child care center that I met in Sunnyside, Queens, who told me that I'm not a progressive, but I realized when I looked at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, they were the only ones who were willing to fight for me. Yeah. And that's what so many New Yorkers and Americans understand, is that these are the two individuals who have been willing to take on this oligarchy and actually stand up for dignity for Americans.
Before you go, one last thing. Bill Ackman, I just mentioned him as right, he's the billionaire hedge fund manager, but he's not alone. There are a lot like him, whether it's Ken Griffin or CEOs of big banks. Would you meet with them?
I'll meet with anyone. I will meet with them, and I'll explain why I believe in the necessity of raising the top corporate tax rate. And I'd also tell Bill Ackman that I firmly disagree with his attempt to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion across the country, because it's not only against the morals of so many, it's also against the actual bottom line for so many businesses. And as a businessman, he should understand that.
All right. Well, Assemblyman, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
The latest SCOTUS ruling is fucked. Which one? He's so fucking cool, man. He's so fucking cool. So is birthright cooked? Basically, the way I would describe it is that if you don't have the money for a lawyer, or social media doesn't care about your case, you're cooked. So short answer, yes. Are you tracking Alligator Alcatraz? They are, what I know is that ICE is apparently like 30,000 people over the max capacity that they have. They're just putting people into like basically concentration camps right now. But the Democrats are too busy trying to call Zohran an anti-Semite to care. Like, the Democratic Party is actually the problem with this country. Like, you understand that, right? Like, the Democratic Party is actually a bigger problem even than Trump, because they destroy our ability to resist. They destroy our ability to fight back or organize. There's a carve-out and universal injunctions for issues related to big business, of course. Big business, yeah, of course. Here's my proposal on day one. Invoke the Defense Production Act to take public control of key supply chains, seize patent rights under the Bayh-Dole Act, and begin public production of insulin, PrEP, naloxone, and other essential meds. Declare vacancy and land hoarding as national emergencies. Prepare to tax or seize vacant units. Declare a national rent emergency and use federal emergency powers to suspend rent collection in federally funded housing, and issue a moratorium on evictions using DOJ enforcement authority. Create a task force to determine targets for eminent domain. I mean, here's my general feeling about this, is that while I think all of these proposals are a good idea, this is Civil War shit. The moment you do this, you're going to see a civil war. Like, the capitalist class will not accept this policy outcome. And do you actually have the authority and the loyalty of the military? So I don't think this is a good day one program. I think this is a good day 400 program, meaning you need to go through the military and do a political purge. You need to like move units and seize units from sources and places that will be sources of resistance. You need to militarily align the government with military. You need to have an ideological test of the senior military officials and intelligence services. You're not going to be able to do this on day one. If you want to do this radical of a shit, you actually have to fight a war for it. Create a task force to determine targets for eminent domain, which will include vacant housing held by REITs, private equity, and landlords with over 100 units in major American cities. I think the one thing, my general feeling is that he seems to believe that we have sufficient housing and things already. And the answer is we do not. We have a major housing shortage and everywhere people want to live. It's not even about like, it's not even there's a bunch of vacant stuff that we just need to bring onto the market. That's not true. There is a severe housing shortage. You have to build the shit. Cancel federal student debt, deschedule cannabis. This is all normal. Commuting all death row sentences. I wouldn't agree with this. I would make sure that every Nazi kept the death penalty. I would actually work to I would work to expedite any Nazis that were facing the death penalty. Mass parole in place for undocumented people. I wouldn't even do this. I would just give full amnesty to everyone in here illegally. Just full amnesty for everyone here illegally. Spend all weapon sales and military aid to Israel and Saudi Arabia. I would do it to all countries. Not why just Israel and Saudi Arabia. It's very funny to be this radical domestically, but then this like moderate. The president has the most power in the military. I would immediately order every single American troop stationed overseas to return home. I would dismantle all American foreign bases. I would return all American units to their home base. I would close and suspend all covert operations and covert wars, all 17. My landlord says he can't find someone to take my apartment to let me out of my lease because I just bought a house. You need to find people yourself. There's a concept in the law called cover. If you can find someone to take your lease, he can't charge you rent. It's called cover. I think Lola's policies are pretty good. They're kind of like, they're good for a day one agenda, but they're not. You just have to be prepared for the revolution, the counter revolution they're trying to do. Mike, tell me about the covert operations. All right. Shouldn't be that. Sorry, I said 17. I think it's 17 now because it was 15. Here you go. Here it is. The U.S. is presently involved in 15 shadow wars. Yemen, Russia, Syria, Cameroon, Iraq, Egypt, Kenya, Lebanon, Libya, Mali, Mauritania, Nigeria, Somalia, Afghanistan. Now, of course, we have Iran and Israel, Gaza. So, yeah, I mean, yeah. All right. Zohran went on Joy Reid, and I didn't see it. I want to watch this.
Candidate for New York City mayor with one of your potential constituents. You're here with Teray. Mr. Mamdani, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so glad to be here. I'm so sorry for the delay in getting on. This is such a pleasure.
I'm gonna let her do the interview, sir, but I already voted. I voted for you. My wife voted for you. We're really excited to see what you do with the city.
Thank you so much. That means the world.
And by the way, I'm glad that I have Teray on with you because I understand my wonderful producing staff here has told me that you might have bars, Mr. Mamdani, that you might have been a rapper back in the day. And Teray, of course, is a hip hop journalist, and that you might have been, you might be the same person that was young Cardamom, and that you might have been inspired by the Wu-Tang Clan. Is this true?
Wu-Tang is very heavy. I would say they are at a far higher plane than I ever was, but I was at one point, like many a New Yorker, an aspiring rapper who had also realized very quickly that maybe my path lay elsewhere, and thus began my career.
Wait, can we hear a bar?
That's for the general. That's for the general, not for the primary.
Okay, so here's the thing, everybody. New York City, if you want to hear Zohran Mamdani's bars, you have to let him get through the primary because in that general, baby, he said he's going to show out. So we're going to lock him into that promise. I do want to ask you because we did speak with Brad Lander earlier, and he and you are cross-endorsed each other. You yourself are an immigrant. You came from Uganda as a 5-year-old. You grew up in Queens, one of the homes of hip hop. But you are running in a city that has really in many ways turned against immigrants because of the current mayor. Talk about how you would deal differently with the Trump administration, the Trump regime, as we call them, on immigration if you were mayor.
You know, I would be the first immigrant mayor of this city in generations, and I would be proud to be that, but even prouder for what I would actually do. This is a city of immigrants. We've said for so long, 40% of New Yorkers were born outside of this country. And yet what we've seen in the current mayoral administration and even in Andrew Cuomo's campaign is an insufficient readiness to actually take on Donald Trump and protect New Yorkers. Because, and this is what it comes down to. So often we use all these modifiers before the term, but ultimately each and every person is a New Yorker. They all deserve the same protections. And what we've seen is one of the things we should be proudest of in New York City are our sanctuary city laws. These are laws that have kept New Yorkers safe for decades, been defended by Republicans and Democrats alike for that time period until the demagoguery of this current mayor. I would proudly stand up for those laws, and I would also start to provide legal representation.
We're going to Paula Reed. She's been reading through the opinion.
All right, Chad, we're gonna look into the opinion in a minute.
For immigrants in detention proceedings, because that's the kind of city intervention
that actually keeps families together. It has an 11-fold increase in success of keeping a family together than if we were to just leave those immigrants to face those court hearings alone.
The other thing that's happening, of course, is that New York City, and I would say Columbia University specifically, but the city in itself has not been open to something that's also a tradition in New York City, and that is protest. I mean, if y'all lived in New York City, and Teray, I think, can back me up on this, there's a protest every day. There's somebody marching somewhere, they're closing the streets because these people are marching against Venezuela, they're marching here, they're marching there. There's lots of protests in New York City. It's part of the cultural life of the city. But Columbia University activist Mahmoud Khalil was arrested for protesting. And protesting for Palestinians has become all but illegal in the United States. And they're coming down on universities that allow people to protest for Palestinians. He was locked up for 104 days, Mahmoud Khalil. He's just been released from immigration jail. Wow. What are your thoughts on his release and on the attitude of the current administration, mayoral administration, toward protest?
You know, I am overjoyed at the fact that Mahmoud Khalil has been released. This has been a long time coming. His detention was pronounced unlawful by the courts quite a significant time ago, and yet still he continued to languish in that ICE detention facility in Louisiana. And we have to remember that he was arrested for no crime at all. They couldn't actually even tell us what it was. And they arrested him in his apartment building lobby. They took him from his pregnant wife, Noor, and he wasn't able to witness the birth of his firstborn child. And the first Father's Day that either of them had was one where they were separated. And what has pained me has been the weaponization of the very real crisis of anti-Semitism as a justification to target the First Amendment rights of Americans across this country. And it is disgusting. It has to be opposed. And I am thankful that Mahmoud is released, and also aware of the fact that there is still so much work to be done. Because as tempting, I'm sorry, here I am in New York City, so you can hear the sounds.
All good.
As tempting as it is to think that repression is only coming from DC, it's also being echoed by institutions in New York City like Columbia University, like NYU Langone, and we deserve a mayor who will be able to not only call authoritarianism what it is, but be able to look it in the eye and not see a reflection of themselves.
Joy, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please. No, go ahead, Teray, jump in.
You know, as a New Yorker, I think a lot about the NYPD, and I am more concerned for my safety and my children's safety with them than with the criminals. What do you plan or think you can do to make the city a little safer from them?
Right now, what we see is an NYPD that too often is assisting ICE agents in their enforcement of the Trump administration's orders. We had the NYPD arrest a pastor for peacefully observing the arrest of a migrant at Federal Plaza. That will come to an end under my administration. The NYPD works for New Yorkers. They're supposed to work for public safety, not to enforce the orders of Washington, D.C. And ultimately, even when I'm speaking to police officers themselves, what I hear is a frustration of the fact that we continue to ask them to do every single job that we could imagine, respond to nearly every single failure of the social safety net. We're asking the same people who signed up to tackle serious crimes to also be mental health professionals and social workers. And when you bring these things up, oftentimes you're framed as if you're critical of policing, when in fact, you're actually listening to police officers who will tell you that they're leaving the force because they can't handle the forced overtime because they don't know when they're going to go home. And the reason they have that overtime is because they're being asked to work triples, doing all kinds of shifts, including patrolling the subways, when really the stated reason for that is to respond to the mental health crisis. And I think it's that awareness of moving backwards from public safety. And also, to your point, Teray, we have to have a CCRB, a Civilian Complaint Review Board, that can issue the recommendations and have them actually listened to. There are far too many times when an officer has been found violating the law, and then the police commissioner will just shrug that recommendation off and treat it as advisory, when in fact it should be binding.
Can I ask you this? Because New York City is supposed to be a sanctuary city. If you're the mayor, will ICE agents still be able to literally wait around in immigration court for pro-MAGA judges to declare people who are lawfully in the country to be essentially illegal and refuse their asylum requests and then hand them over? Is that something that even should be legal in a sanctuary city?
I think it's horrific. I think it's disgusting. And I think we're watching the separation of families in real time. And we're seeing these judges and these agents who are often masked and in unmarked cars making a mockery of the justice system of this country. And what I will do as the next mayor is use every single tool at my disposal to protect New Yorkers. And those New Yorkers also include asylum seekers. They also include migrants. They also include immigrants. Because, you know, so many of us across this country were rightfully shocked by the case of Kilmar, a man who was taken from Maryland to El Salvador. Now, if the municipality in which Kilmar was living in Maryland had sanctuary city policies, he would have never been able to have been taken to El Salvador. So what these policies...
That's exactly, and this is exactly the reality. This is what I've been trying to explain. Thank you, Zohran, for making it so fucking concrete. The only reason Mahmoud Khalil could be fucking treated this way is because the Democratic Party is helping Trump.
Sure is that we do not have so many more of these kinds of stories that we can actually keep our people where they belong, which is their home.
Let me ask you about affordability, because this is another thing. You've talked a lot about making New York a place where people can actually afford to live, which is a huge issue for New Yorkers. How do you do that?
You know, this is the most expensive city in the United States of America. It's also the wealthiest city and the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And 1 in 4 New Yorkers are living in poverty. And too often we've had city government and politicians pretend as if we're just spectators to this crisis. The way that you deliver affordability here is that you use the tools at your disposal. The city can freeze the rent for more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants in a city of 8.5 million people. You could provide immediate relief in a manner that is incredible for so many people, where they could know that the rent they're paying today is the rent they're going to pay next year. You could make the slowest buses in the country fast and free. And that might not seem like a lot, but $2.90 is now out of reach of 1 in 5 New Yorkers. And finally, after housing, the most expensive cost in New York City is childcare, about $25,000 a year, if not more, for so many families. And we've seen with universal pre-K the ability for city government to start to take some of that responsibility itself, take that burden off working families. I would deliver universal childcare for children from the ages of 6 weeks to 5 years. And these things together are all part of an economic agenda that will actually make the city affordable.
I wonder what you think about the marijuana policy that's going on in the city, because we've legalized it, so we're not arresting people, children, but we have way more stores selling marijuana than there could actually be demand, and many of them are selling illegally, which puts the legal effort into check. So what do you want to do around that issue?
You know, I think there's a difference between legalizing marijuana, which I was in support of and which I voted for, and then having a proliferation of stores that are often not actually in alignment with the law itself. And so much of the spirit of this legislation was to ensure that the very New Yorkers who were incarcerated for possession of this drug would then be able to have a head start in creating a business out of this. And yet what the proliferation of these stores has done is also make a mockery of that intent. And we need to have a mayor that doesn't just bring a focus on affordability, but also a focus on competence, because so much of the rollout of legislation is up to an executive's interest and willingness to actually do so. I'm going to be that executive as I build a team of the best and the brightest. And the last thing I'll just say is the reason that I'm outside, the reason that we hear all these sounds is because I'm walking the entire length of Manhattan right now just to meet everyone where they are. One of the most New York City things we say is we outside. So we deserve a mayor who's also outside. One that you can yell at, one that you can talk to, one that you can see, because that's what I'm trying to be.
I love it. Zohran Mamdani, thank you so much. Good luck. He outside, y'all. So please vote, everybody. Thank you very much. And we're going to get bars from him if he gets that nomination. So if he gets to the next round. So y'all.
That's a promise.
Okay. Look, he's going to start rehearsing.
Honestly, like, oh man, I got to get him on more of our content here on Twitch. But, you know, he met with Hassan and he did a huge thing with Hassan.
Teray, I love this. Teray and I he's my co-host. We're keeping him. We're keeping Teray around. Teray, what do you think? Does he have a shot to beat Andrew Cuomo?
As far as I know, he's leading in the polls. So,
oh, they were right. They were right. And they were not as right about it as me. I was completely right. I should do more of an investigation on it for you guys. But basically, like I said, he was going to win on the back of Gen Z and millennials. And the evidence is completely saying that's totally right. Like completely right. Like I called it exactly correct. And I also said I didn't think it would be that close. I was the only person who said that. Am I forgiven for Joy Reid for her anti? See, the thing about her is to be delicate. There are some people who had a really strong emotional connection with Obama, and anybody who was seen as like anti-Obama, she's an Obama bot. She's an Obama bot. So If you were not an Obama bot, she went after you with like everything she has. But now that we're finally getting past the post-Kamala, post-Obama period, I think she started to become better. All right, let's watch this Supreme Court shit, chat. Because people are complaining to me about it. So we got to like actually see what happened.
I'm going to go to Paula Reed. She's been reading through the opinion. Paula, what are you gleaning from it?
All right, Pamela, here's what we know. This is a big win for President Trump because he has been railing against the so-called nationwide injunctions. This is the power of a single judge to block an executive order for the entire country. And this case came
What's
up.
so funny about this is conservatives used the fuck out of this shit during the Biden administration.
As a result of multiple challenges to his effort to limit birthright citizenship through an executive order. Now, here it appears that the justices are agreeing with Trump and limiting this power that judges have to block a policy for the entire country. Now, on another issue, it does not appear that they have weighed in on whether Trump's effort to limit birthright citizenship is or is not constitutional. Instead, they are limiting the power of these judges to block policies for the entire country, which will likely allow Trump to proceed with this effort to limit birthright citizenship while the larger constitutional questions about whether he can do that are being litigated. Now, just to explain to you the significance of this, one of President Trump's lawyers told me this is the ball game for President Trump's agenda because we know more than any modern president, he loves to govern through executive action. And the majority of these have been blocked by lower court judges. So he has not been able to follow through with things he wanted to do on the budget, on mass firings, on immigration. So now that the justices are limiting the power that judges have to block those policies, this is going to allow them to implement these policies more quickly, though it is possible that some of these might come before the justices in 2 or 3 years with constitutional concerns. But right now, the question was really whether a single judge anywhere in the country could block an executive action for the entire nation. And here, in a historic opinion, the justices are limiting that power. And again, President Trump's lawyers have told me this is the case that they are watching. This means everything for the president's ability to govern through executive actions. Now, we'll say these nationwide injunctions, this is a bipartisan concern. These have plagued every modern president. But because President Trump does so much through executive action, he has faced the greatest number of these nationwide injunctions. So he and his Republican allies here on Capitol Hill, they have been railing against these. This is a pet issue for them. And now the conservative supermajority siding with President Trump and his Republican allies to limit this power from judges. A huge decision.
So just to be precise, Paula, this was a 6-3 decision, 6 conservative justices, 3 liberal justices. Is that right?
And it was authored by Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Now, some of her conservative
Now, I want you to understand this, chat, that the Republicans held open a Supreme Court seat. I think it was 336 days or something like that. Somebody would have to go look it up because they said, oh, there's a vacancy during a presidential election year. We should let the voters weigh in. Donald Trump won in 2016. They appointed Brett Kavanaugh, I think it was. Or was it what's the other guy? Neil Gorsuch. It was Gorsuch. Okay. They appointed Neil Gorsuch. Then at the very end of the Trump term, Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies. And they appointed Amy Coney Barrett 8 days before the election. So they held open a seat for 330 days, and then they appointed someone with 8 days before the election. And the Democrats took it up the fucking proverbial dump truck and did fucking nothing. They said, we'll study Supreme Court reform. And then they studied Supreme Court reform, and they were like, yeah, we should probably do something about it. And then, you know what Kamala Harris said? She said in her campaign, we should study Supreme Court reform again.
Colleagues did also opine concurrences here. We're still reading through those. We have old school, the paper copy. It is very long. We're still getting through the whole opinion. So these are just the top lines, but this is enormous. This is yet another huge win for President Trump from this conservative supermajority. Now, we have been reporting since Trump took office in January that his lawyers were telling me, even though a lot of their policies were getting bogged down in the lower courts, that anything they could get in front of this high court, that they would ultimately win. And they were playing a long game. And this decision right here, this is proof that this long game they've been playing for the past 6 or 7 months, they've won, and they've won big time.
All right, Paula, stand by. We'll get back to you as you continue reading this opinion, and we'll see what the final decision is with a lot more specific details. I want to go to Jeff Zeleny. He's over at the White House for us, where they're watching very, very closely, probably more closely than any place else in the country right now, what the U.S. Supreme Court is doing.
There's no question about that, Wolf, and exactly what Paula was saying there. This is about something much broader than birthright citizenship. Yes, that specific issue was the venue to get this to the Supreme Court. That will likely be decided on a different day, but it is just the idea of this power of the executive branch.
Reginald, thank you for the gift subs and paying it forward. Hell yeah, brother. Okay, we are currently at 10,164 sub. Should I go by subscribers instead of sub points? I always go by sub points. I think sub points is right because I feel like tier 3s and tier 2s should be counted as more. We shouldn't go by subs. We should go by sub points.
That really is at issue here. It's hard to think of another administration, and I've covered the last 4 or 5 presidents, I guess, that has used their executive authority as much, and it's been challenged by lower courts. Now the Supreme Court is weighing in, and it is giving the executive branch considerable power. One White House official, and they're...
I mean, basically what this decision means is that the president could violate the law and the Constitution, and the courts will not stop him. That's basically what this means. They are pretty much abrogating the power of the judicial branch. This is the most radical decision we've had since Wickard v. Filburn. This is basically enacting the imperial presidency. I like, it's one of these decisions where I'm like having trouble even really considering how America is America at this point, because it's just, you're kind of making the courts and the legislature mere formalities. This is Trump's enabling act.
Reading through this opinion in the White House counsel's office, just as everyone else is, but is pointing to this line in Justice Amy Coney Barrett's opinion. It says this: when a court concludes that the executive branch has acted unlawfully, the answer is not for the court to exceed its power too. So basically, if the executive branch has exceeded its authority, a judge cannot also weigh in, a singular judge. So the White House is viewing this ruling as very consequential that could affect a variety of policies, a variety of cases that exist really across the spectrum of what this administration has tried to do. So there's no doubt, even though birthright citizenship was something the president long talked about, he campaigned on, this is bigger than that in a sense because it is broader, and it's answering a question, at least for the moment, about the power of the executive branch that many lower courts have raised into question.
Jeff Zeleny at the White House.
Yeah, and obviously this impacts the power of the executive branch, but it impacts every single American as well. And I think that's a big focus here, because I remember, Ellie, during the oral arguments, one of the concerns brought up was if judges can't do the nationwide injunction, then you have a patchwork where the plaintiffs, are...
Here's my opinion. Here's my take. When a court concludes that the executive branch has exceeded their authority, it cannot exceed its authority too. In other words, district courts are powerless to stop unlawful conduct by the executive branch. This is Trump's enabling act. The constitutional order is dead. Like, it's over. It's actually over. You can't really use the courts. Unless the Supreme Court decides to personally intervene, you're fucked. They could just violate everybody's law. They could violate someone's rights. It's clear that they violated that person's rights. That person can sue. That person can prove that their rights are violated. And all the court can do is help that one person. They can't go to the executive branch, hey, stop violating the rights as has been proven here. They cannot, they can only do stuff. They can't stop them. So they violate someone's rights. It's proven every single time they violate the rights. Each individual person has to sue and win. It's fucking over. Like, that's a batshit crazy decision.
injunction, but others in America wouldn't be under that. And so that's really the question here. How does it address that issue?
Yeah, and in this case, in the birthright citizenship case, there was something like 6 different lawsuits filed in 6 different district courts. This case is an amalgamation of 3 of them that went up to the Supreme Court. So now they're going to be back in the district courts. That's where most of the action happens in the federal judiciary. We're very focused on the U.S. Supreme Court. But this question remains in flux. People who were born to parents who are not citizens could have different status in different districts at this moment. I do want to read to the point that Paula and Jeff were making. This is a good sense of why this is so important. It's a quote from the opinion. It's on page 5, written by Amy Coney Barrett. She's writing for the 6-justice conservative majority, an expansion of presidential powers, a reduction in the powers of courts. Here's what Justice Barrett writes. By the end of the Biden administration, we had reached a state of affairs where almost every major presidential action was immediately frozen by a federal district court. As the number of universal injunctions has increased, so too has the importance of this issue. And I think that's a nice encapsulation of why this is such a big win for the Trump administration. And not just Donald John Trump, the person, but the office of the president. Whoever comes next is going to get the benefit of this ruling too. And it's going to make it much harder, not impossible, but much harder for a single district court judge in Maryland or Wyoming or where have you to say, I'm blocking the president's action nationwide. It's going to be much harder to do that now.
And isn't there a strategic victory, obviously, on behalf of the administration, back to those oral arguments that you were talking about, Pamela, by focusing this on the nationwide injunction issue and not the underlying birthright citizenship, which clearly does...
It's the same shit. They're basically saying we can't defend the idea that they don't have citizenship, so we're just going to make it so the vast majority of people cannot afford to get relief from the courts because they can't afford a judge or can't afford a fucking lawyer. So Trump's going to violate a bunch of American citizens' rights, and we're not going to do anything to stop it.
Every scholar says it's not constitutional at its core, but does live on to fight another day and perhaps have some enforcement or enactment in the meantime.
And this is part, I've just started to sort of dig into the dissent, but this is part of what the 3 liberal justices say in dissent. We're going to end up with chaos. We're going to end up with a system where if you're born in New Jersey, you might have different status than if you're born in the exact same circumstances across the river in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. And so that's one of the problems here, the practical problems. I think you're exactly right, David. And again, important to stress, the dispute over birthright citizenship itself and Donald Trump's effort to not eliminate it, but narrow it, that's for another day. That, I think, will make its way back to the Supreme Court, but not this term.
And I think, or excuse me, I think that's actually one of the critical points. This is not an end. This is the beginning. I think it's premature to declare victory for the administration in this. What this opinion is a full employment license for litigators. Now, all of these cases go back to the lower courts. The Supreme Court appears to have said you can bring these cases as class actions. You don't have to proceed individually, but class actions are a complicated question as well.
By the way, the Supreme Court, the conservative Supreme Court, has severely limited class actions. They have severely limited class actions. They've made class actions much harder to class certify. This has been a foregrounding effort of the conservative bar for decades. We are actually in a situation where the liberal weakness is putting us into an existential crisis. Our country is actually going to fail. Our country is actually going to fail because liberals are so fucking weak. It's unbelievable.
This is going to get litigated over time. Now, that it's consistent with the long game strategy. It was absolutely a strategic decision by the administration to bring it in this posture. They've prevailed sort of initially in getting themselves more time to pursue this. But it's not at all clear that this policy will succeed or ever actually be implemented. It now depends what lower courts across the country do. This is coming back to the Supreme Court, but first, more litigation over the coming year.
And Deborah Pearlstein is a constitutional law professor at Princeton University, so you understand the Constitution and you understand the ramifications of this major.
Okay, by the way, there is no understanding the Constitution. Law is dead. Legal interpretation is dead. It's whatever the conservatives want. It doesn't require a law degree to figure that out. This is all in Project 2025, page 59, page 559. Okay. Why is it not? Just scroll. Why is my mouse freaking out? Oh my God. Federal courts have jurisdiction to deal with a wide array of issues in law and equity in the United States. The increasingly aggressive posture of federal courts does not change one constitutionally immutable fact. All three branches of the federal government retain not just the right, but the obligation to assess constitutionality. It is this obligation that is the foundation of separation of powers. The next conservative administration should embrace the Constitution to understand the obligation of the executive branch to use its independent resources and authorities to restrain the excesses of both the legislative and judicial branches. This will mean ensuring that the leadership of the DOJ and its components understand the separation of powers. No, this is not right. This is about the Chevron doctrine. Yeah, no, this is actually beyond what you linked me, guys. This is actually not on point.
Decision.
Yeah, and our Paula Reed wants to weigh in as well. Paula?
Yeah, so we're getting reaction from inside the Justice Department. Of course, this case was argued by the Justice Department on behalf of President Trump and the administration, and it was argued by John Sauer. He is the same lawyer who successfully argued President Trump's immunity case last year, where we were here. Pam, I think you and I were here together over here at the Supreme Court, and we're equally surprised by the enormity of that opinion in terms of its impact on granting immunity to sitting presidents. And here, the Attorney General Pam Bondi said that the Supreme Court instructed district courts to stop the endless barrage of nationwide injunctions against President Trump. This would not have been possible without the tireless work from our excellent lawyers at the Justice Department and the Solicitor General John Sauer. She says that the Justice Department will continue to zealously defend President Trump's policies and his authority to implement them. Now, I know one of the panelists was just talking about how this will really be like sort of a lawyer full employment act as we have this patchwork of response to executive actions and different rulings in different districts. But again, it takes a long time to get a constitutional question or controversy before the Supreme Court. And when we're talking a lot about these executive actions, these will likely be able to be enforced in large parts of the country for quite some time. And when you're
basically what Trump is trying to do is create an environment. Just to explain this, Trump is trying to create an environment where the executive branch wantonly abuses the constitutional rights of individuals it targets. It rushes to enforce those violations. After them, the courts can react. And then after some innocent person is stripped of their citizenship, made stateless, deported to some random country, requiring that person to then be able to like sue in federal court for years before their decision is ever fucking dealt with. This is absolute lawlessness. This is a destruction of the constitutional order. I understand that there's been a lot of hysteria over Trump over the years. But this reality is that Donald Trump is exposing something that I've been saying for a long time. The United States Constitution has outlived its usefulness, and we need radical constitutional reform. This country is fucking broken.
Talking about something like federal layoffs or things they want to do with the budget or even birthright citizenship, I mean, this is something that could deter a lot of people from continuing their fight.
All right, so now that we know what the ruling was, Trump's response was...
Thanks for this decision, and thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country.
For the longest time, conservatives used to say, I want to go by the plain language of the statute and the Constitution. Don't use any arguments about intent. By the way, they talked about this very point and they agreed that it did make these people citizens, and they enacted it anyway. So if you're talking about the legislative history or the constitutional amendments history, they themselves talked about this fucking point and said it's okay and then passed it. If you study the legislative history of this amendment. So anyway, conservatives used to say just the plain language. Now suddenly originalism is gone. Originalism is dead. Now it's whatever Donald Trump wants it to be. That's What? I've always said these motherfuckers are liars. They don't believe in shit.
Under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now properly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship.
We are in a period where centrism is just as much of a problem as the Republicans at this point. Like, I'm sorry, guys. Like, we need Zohrans, and that's the minimum.
Oh, we actually have this is the other case we're watching for.
Over
This
here,
has to do with whether parents. Oh, we actually have this is the other case we're watching for. This has to do with whether parents can opt out of curriculum that deals with LGBTQ issues. We've seen this conservative supermajority continue to expand our religious protections, so we've been watching this. I am told, my producer Casey just handed me a note, this is a 6-3 win for parents. So here, in one of the biggest cases of the term, the justice is ruling that parents can opt out of instruction or curriculum that deals with LGBTQ issues on religious grounds. And this is significant because this could open the door for other religious exemptions to other aspects of school learning. So we're still waiting for that Texas case, but this, one of the other really big cases that we have been watching fresh off the press.
Zohran Mamdani'S primary victory in New York City's mayor race has sparked debate about the future of the Democratic Party across the country. Joining us right now is Bradley Tusk. He's the founder and CEO of Tusk Ventures, who also served as campaign manager for Mayor Bloomberg's successful 2009 bid. And Bradley, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Let's talk very quickly about what this means for New York, but I want to quickly get to the broader implications for the Democratic Party.
Sure.
What people are watching nationally. Why does this matter? First of all, what does it mean for New York? Do you think he's actually going to be elected mayor?
I do think he's going to be elected mayor. I think that whoever the Democratic nominee is walking in with a massive advantage. And turnout was pretty high for a low turnout city, which is about 1 million people voted the Democratic primary. In the 2021 general, only 1.1 million people voted in total. So the idea that there are enough votes for Eric Adams or Andrew Cuomo to win as independent or Curtis Lee was a Republican, the math isn't there.
Well, except for Mamdani didn't win even 50% of those million votes that came up. If the people who didn't vote for him say, we don't want
He's going to end up winning 57% or something of the actual votes when all the ranking is done tomorrow. That's going to be wrong.
Maybe there are enough votes.
Maybe, but keep on. He got 432,000 first place votes. Next week, we'll know about the second and other place votes. So people who ranked him and didn't rank Cuomo, you have to assume they would pick him in a general election. So my guess is he will be over 50% pretty soon.
Okay, why do you think this happened? And I guess those are implications.
By the way, chat, fuck, I hate that this guy's, I hate the evil smarts, man. Whenever you run into the evil, like this is a guy who works for Bloomberg for money. And this is why rich people stay in power. They hire sociopathic smart people like this who act as their fucking toadies. I hate that this guy's fucking smart. God damn it. I hate seeing a demon. Demons always bum me out, dude. Like demons always bum me out. Whenever you see a demon, because it's like, come on, man. You're really going to sell your intelligence to these fucking scumbags? For their little trinkets they give you? Like, come on, man. Don't you want to get rid of them? Like, whenever I see a really intelligent sociopath, I'm like, how did you not teach yourself empathy?
With a more national.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few reasons. The first is I think it was a wholesale rejection, to your point, of the Democratic Party nationally, right? I think Democrats in New York said to the party, you forced Joe Biden down our throats when you knew he wasn't Copus Mentis. Then you forced Kamala Harris down our throats. Then you tried to force Andrew Cuomo down our throats. And this is the point of democracy. We're not going to take it. And when the New York Times came out and said, don't rank Mamdani, if anything, I ended up sending everyone in the other direction saying, stop telling us what to do. We don't want to hear it. So that's number one. Number two,
I hate when they're smart. I hate when the demons are smart. Fuck. This is why I call them a demon, because a demon is a malevolent force that's very intelligent for evil. Most of the time when you're dealing with centrists, they're fucking idiots. But when you see a real demon, and this guy is a fucking demon. I hate when my enemy knows ball. Fuck.
Ran a great campaign. He understands that the way that you connect with voters today is short form video.
Give away free stuff.
It's TikTok. Yeah, but you know, it's funny. Even that, there's two issues that New Yorkers tend to care about.
Republicans do that too now.
If you look at the data, right? It's quality of life and it's affordability. and he ran a campaign on affordability where none of the things he promised can happen realistically in the way that he promised them. But in terms of an issue that resonated with voters, he found that.
We know what happens when you price everything too low, like affordable housing, then there's no housing left. When you price goods too low, the demand it's just simple supply and demand.
Okay, this is literally, he like, honest to God, these market fundamentalists are actually just fucking stupid. Here's a dumb fuck drunkard, okay? There is only so much housing demand that could exist in New York, all right? Now, obviously, if you make it zero and you say anybody can move here and live in the zero cost apartments, then everyone in the entire world will try to move to New York. Okay? Or at least a significant portion of the world. So you can't just say it's free for everyone in New York if you show up. There has to be some amount of gatekeeping to deliver it, which is obviously true because there's only so much capacity that we could produce housing at. That being said, there are apartments that are fucking tiny shoeboxes going for $4,000 a month. Bro, it doesn't cost $4,000 a month to deliver that little shoebox. That is land speculation. That is exploitation. That is landlordism. A lot of these apartments were built and they cost $500 a unit per month of costs. And they're charging $3,500 a month in rent. We can build social and public housing, charge $1,500 or $2,000 a month, cover the costs, and significantly lower it while also not, saying it's zero and causing an absolute flood. And we could do this all over the country because it doesn't cost $4,000 a month to build a fucking two-bedroom apartment. A two-bedroom apartment probably costs somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 to build, fair market value, labor, all in, everything. And that's what you know how I know this? I study Vienna. Vienna, they spend $400 million a year producing 7,000 new apartments. And I think they remodel 12,000. So get your fucking calculator out. They build 7,000 high quality social housing units with $400 million every year. That's fucking nothing. Like, it's actually fucking crazy that these dumb fuck pieces of shit, like, say this dumbass shit. And how do they do it? How do they do it? It's $60,000 each. Well, because it's a combination of things. There is public financing that's happening. So the subsidy part of it is only $60,000 each, but they also have like very low cost mortgages and there's financing. And so they have set up a structure that creates nonprofit organizations or limited profit development or government development that produces a shit ton of high quality social housing that charges super low rent for very little cost because they've engineered a system that's not around profit. You fucking dumbass. Now there's still market housing in Vienna for the top 30%. If you want luxury housing, they have a fucking market. They build market housing. They build private homes. Those exist for the very high end. And people still make money doing it.
So he's promising things and the opposite will happen. And we've seen it. Go to Cuba, go to any place where they've tried it. There's nothing on the shelves.
We're going to, luckily, the mayor of New York City doesn't have that level of control over the supply chain or anything else. But overall, it's funny, Andrew Cuomo, who lost, his dad had this famous quote you probably remember, campaign in poetry, govern in prose. Let's see if Mamdani can do that. So the one encouraging thing I'll say is I had all the candidates except Cuomo on my podcast. He didn't come on. And where at least I was mildly reassured was Mamdani talking about his approach to hiring. Now, New York City or any mayoralty is an operational job. When I worked for Mike Bloomberg, the real reason that Mike was a great mayor was that he was able to attract the best talent for every job.
Like you.
Yeah, thank you. And let them do their jobs. So when Mamdani told me...
It's so funny that one of Bloomberg's smartest operatives is actually able to analyze reality so well. Fuck, this is so annoying. I hate giving credit to my ideological opponents. This guy actually seems like he knows what he's talking about. He just disagrees with me on ideology, which is fine. But he seems to be able to be like, yeah, no, good campaign. He seems competent. Oh, yeah, everything he said. Like, he disagrees about political plausibility of whatever. That's fucking horseshit.
Not be true, but what he said to me on the air was, as long as the person that I'm hiring doesn't disagree with me about the thing that I'm hiring them to run, I just want the best people I can get. If he means that, That will make a big difference. And I have already offered to them and said, I'm happy, and a lot of people I know are happy to help give you resumes, find you talent, find you apolitical, talented administrators to run sanitation, parks, buildings, things like that. And one thing he could do right now is say that he wants to keep Jesse Tisch as police commissioner. She's doing a great job, and I think if she were to stay, that would go a long way.
She can be commissioner of the social workers that are patrolling the neighborhoods. So is this a way?
Why do they think this is some sort of gotcha? Why do you think it's some sort of gotcha to get people that know how to deal with mental illness to deal with mentally ill people? Why do they think this is fucking stupid? No, we need to send in the cops to spend $80,000 a year incarcerating them, you dumb fuck. Jesus Christ, what a dumbass.
To run a city where, how many people are in New York City?
8.5 million.
450,000 elect a mayor.
Yeah.
Can we do it some type of electoral college? Or is it too late to do something?
So if you guys remember, I don't know if it was the last time I was on, but not too long ago, I came on to talk about mobile voting, and out of my foundation, I've been building technology that we're going to put up on GitHub and make free to any government that wants
this
it.
Wouldn't happen.
To give it away. Exactly. So 5% of the city's population effectively chose the next mayor. If we had mobile voting, odds are all of these people who probably didn't vote would at least have the ability to do so. And it's not just that we'd have more turnout, we'd have better candidates. So
part of that is the two-party system in the primaries, the way they're set up.
We should also have open primaries, for sure.
Open primaries should exist.
Yeah.
But that's not just New York City. I think it's particularly bad in New York City. That's the national problem, too.
Okay. Yeah.
Is the Democratic Party. I mean, if you look right now, AOC is in the lead when you look at any of these polls that they take or anything, followed up by the Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. Right. Is that
conservative?
Yeah. Well, look, for as long as we have a government.
By the way, this is why you watch the business press. Fuck. This is my #1 recommendation. If you want to get past all the bullshit, like CNN and MSNBC are actually useless because they're just propaganda. This is why you watch the business press. Because they'll say the quiet part out loud. He says, Gavin Newsom, the conservative. Exactly. Correct.
That is seen as totally across the board, one-sided, dysfunctional, and broken. The only people who tend to do well are demagogues on either side of the aisle, and then that just makes things even worse because they can't actually govern. And
wrong. Except FDR proves this totally wrong. Except Red Vieta proves this totally wrong. And social democrats and communists all over the world. Is Xi Jinping not able to fucking govern? I think he's probably the best governing politician in the world right now. Is he not able to govern? Seems like he has iron control over China, and it's the fastest growing economy in human history. I'm pretty sure he can fucking govern. So what are you talking about? Is Claudia Sheinbaum are they governing poorly in Mexico? You fucking dipshit. What the fuck are you talking about? The poor government is Starmer in the UK. It is fucking Macron in France. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It was Joe Biden, Barack Obama in the U.S. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
We're just in this self-fulfilling doom loop, and we can fix it with better turnout.
Jesus Christ.
Behold the branch ergonomic chair, a symbiotic companion for the working human.
Fuck you.
So, Paul, as Vaughn just mentioned, there's that 30-day window, so his executive order doesn't automatically go into effect in certain jurisdictions or certain states, right? Do you think the Supreme Court's going to weigh in within the next 30 days on the merits?
It certainly won't. What is waiting is for the cases about the substantive issue of birthright citizenship to work their way through the system. So first through the district courts, and then through the Court of Appeals, and finally to the Supreme Court. So that is not likely to happen until next Supreme Court term at the earliest. And so Justice Sotomayor, in her blistering dissent in this case, said that we now have a system where some people have constitutional rights and others don't. We have this patchwork constitution, which Justice Sotomayor says undermines the rule of law in the United States. This isn't only about the crucial issue of birthright citizenship, but because of federal injunctions, now the Trump administration has been prevented from deporting hundreds of thousands of immigrants. It's been prevented from forcing transgendered women prisoners to be housed with male inmates. It's been prevented withholding funds from schools that practice diversity. Now, all of those protections go out of the window unless somehow in the next 30 days, all of those litigants can get into the 94 district courts in the United States, get lawyers, and try to get injunctions in those individual courts.
Danny, I see you nodding along. I mean, I guess on this one issue specifically, does it sound like Trump's executive order banning birthright citizenship is going to go into effect, at least in certain parts of the country?
Temporarily, yes, with the idea being, as the Solicitor General argued, that all of these cases, as Paul pointed out, will have to percolate. That was the magic word they used at oral argument. They percolate through the system and make their way up to the Supreme Court. But I have to say that in her blistering dissent, Sotomayor has some pretty good points. Among them are the idea that, yes, one of the things the majority ignored was that the administration lost at every single level, at the district court, at the Court of Appeals. And that's significant to Sotomayor. To the majority, it isn't as important. But the reason it's significant is that this is an example where the forecast is that this executive order will probably be unconstitutional. Why? Because we have a case history. Now, true, the Supreme Court will look at the issue with fresh eyes because it's such a pure legal issue of first impression. The fact that they've lost at every level is a strong argument for a nationwide injunction, for enjoining the administration itself. You enjoin the administration from doing what it's doing everywhere as opposed to in one of 94 districts. And so folks understand...
Couldn't the Supreme Court have done that in this case? Couldn't they have said on this issue, this nationwide injunction makes sense? We are marking that right now at this high level, and wouldn't that have provided clarity for a lot of people, for the country of...
Yeah, because they don't have any arguments they can plausibly make that what they're doing is okay. So they just didn't say anything so they can keep doing the lawless behavior because the Supreme Court is undermining the rule of law and the checks and balances. They're a fascist court. These are Nazi judges. This is exactly what happened in fucking Germany. These are Nazi fucking judges, and something's got to be done.
Millions who are going to be impacted?
Yes, if the dissenters had the majority. But yes, here's one way they could have done it. The majority's rationale is that the idea of an injunction is limited by the Judiciary Act. And so you have to go back 200 years to the 1700s and say, hey, were courts in England enjoining people who are not actual parties before the court? And the majority concludes, no, they did not. You have to have the actual parties before the court. So you can't issue a nationwide injunction because someone in Oklahoma isn't before the court. Someone in Oregon isn't before the court. Therefore, the courts don't have the power to enjoin this activity. But even the majority acknowledges that this concept, it's called equity, the idea of injunctions, is a flexible concept. So if it is flexible, arguably it could have gone the other way, and a nationwide injunction could arguably be constitutional. That's just one way this could have gone in the direction of the dissenters. But the reality is the dissenters are the minority, the predictable three-person minority.
Can I jump in for a second? You know, there is a universe in which there still could be a universal injunction in this case, and it's something that the court discusses with respect to the states. What they say is when the states asked for their universal injunctions, they said it wouldn't be enough just to give them relief in their respective states because their residents could migrate between states, that unless there was something that covered the entire
So we're gonna need Democrats and Democrat attorney generals to actually fight for people? We're fucked. Basically, this is the wet dream of Republicans because Republican AGs are incredibly willing to use taxpayer dollars for the most radical right-wing shit. And Democratic AGs are fucking cowards. I mean, for example, Kamala Harris was a California AG. You think she's going to defend your rights? What a fucking joke.
Landscape of the country, the states that were litigating here, could not get completely relief. And I want to read from Justice Barrett's majority decision because while she doesn't agree with that per se, she doesn't shut down the executive order wholesale. She leaves that question for another day. She says, we decline to take up these arguments in the first instance. The lower court should determine whether a narrower injunction is appropriate, meaning vis-a-vis the individual states. We therefore leave it to them to consider these and any related arguments. But before she gets there, Anna, she is talking about what those arguments are that the states make. She says, as the states see it, their harms, financial injuries, and administrative burdens flowing from citizen-dependent benefits programs, meaning you have to be a citizen to qualify, cannot be remedied without a blanket ban. on the enforcement of the executive order. And then she goes and talks about how the administration says that's not right. You could only apply them to those respective states. She says, you know what? We're not deciding that right now. The lower court should consider both sides of this argument when we throw it back to them. Again, in her dissent, Justice Jackson is saying they even concede that there are some circumstances in this particular case where a universal injunction still might be appropriate. They won't give it to them now, but we could come back to a situation where one of the district courts involved in the state litigation says, even with this decision in hand, I still find a universal injunction is entirely appropriate, and then it goes back to the Supreme Court again.
Again, this was a 6-3 decision, so it broke along kind of party lines. I know that's not the technical term that you use with the Supreme Court, but you have the conservative justices and you have the liberal justices. Amy Coney Barrett wrote the majority opinion, and she said this about nationwide injunctions, quote, "The bottom line, the universal injunction was conspicuously non-existent for most of our nation's history. Because the universal injunction lacks a historical pedigree, it falls outside the bounds of a federal court's equitable authority." Paul, what kind of territory are we in when it comes to checks and balances?
We're in brand new territory where the Supreme Court doesn't seem up to exercising its role as a co-equal branch of government.
That's exactly right. Like, this is, I mean, honestly, this is my wet dream. My main concern is that the Democrats are going to let Donald Trump act like this, and then the moment they get into office, they're going to pull a Biden and go like, well, we need to put everything back in order and leave all of the right-wing shit up that Trump did illegally, and then let themselves be fucking cucked for 4 years until the next hyper-fascist, you know, Tucker Carlson on a robo-Hitler body become president, because they will never do anything with power.
The Trump administration get away with things it's hard to believe it will let any other administration get away with. You know, the executive branch has always had the power to issue executive orders, but what's new is the level and scope of what the Trump administration is doing. It's making all of these sweeping holdings. Federal courts in all of the birthright citizen cases so far have conceded are probably unconstitutional, right, but at least for the short term, or perhaps the long term, depending on when the court decides to rule on the merits, some people in some states have constitutional rights that people in other states don't.
Yeah, I was just looking for what the lower court said here, Danny, because he's absolutely right that the lower courts all have ruled against the Trump administration's executive order on the merits. Given that this court is not ruling on the merits yet and is allowing the birthright citizenship ban to go into effect in some places, practically speaking, even if it is just temporarily, does that give us any clues as to how this court would rule on the merits?
This is a main focus of Sotomayor's dissent, which is we should take into consideration the fact that the administration has lost at every level. Now, the counter to that argument is that in cases like this, especially cases of first impression on constitutional issues that have rarely, if ever, been decided, there's an argument to be made that every single decision is basically an exhibition match. And that's because the Supreme Court eventually, and actually the appellate court, looks at every one of these legal issues with fresh eyes. So they're not really as bound as they might be with issues of fact, which are usually etched in stone at the trial court level. So there is the counter to that argument, which is, well, maybe it doesn't matter as much that the Trump administration has lost at every level because they could always win at the Supreme Court. But Sotomayor makes a compelling point that it should factor in. This is a great example of something that the government is so likely to lose on. And one of the other things I thought she raised that I thought was important was, think about this going the other way. What if the next president, a Democrat president, for example, says, I hereby issue an executive order, we're collecting all the guns. We're collecting them all tomorrow. Right. We're going house to house, and we interpret the Constitution. The Second Amendment is saying, well, we're only talking about militia, and that's, I don't know, the National Guard. Therefore, your AR-15 is now going to be collected by our authorities. Imagine the same thing. Someone would immediately go to a district court to challenge that as unconstitutional. And so now, what does this mean? That we now need to wait for, as Attorney General or Solicitor General
the answer is yes, but the reason why the answer is yes is because Democrats would never do that. So we live in an era of asymmetric polarization. where Republicans violate the law, they violate the Constitution, they play constitutional hardball, they filibuster everything, they hold a Supreme Court seat open for 300 days plus under Obama, they rush in Amy Coney Barrett with 8 days before the election into total rampant hypocrisy, and their voters like it, and their base loves it. And then the Democrats come into power wringing their fucking hands and crying about how things aren't fair, and then they immediately handcuff themselves and go, oh, I guess we lose again. Instead of when we had the House and the Senate and the White House, why didn't they admit DC and Puerto Rico as states? If Puerto Rico wants to be a state, they become a state. If DC wants to be a state, that's 4 more Democratic senators. Why didn't they do that? The Republican Party split up Dakota. It used to be the Dakota territory, but the Republican Party split it to North and South Dakota for the express purpose of getting 4 Republican senators instead of 2. Why is it that we have 800,000 Americans on the mainland who can't vote for Congress, and we've got millions of Americans sitting in this like second-class citizenship in Puerto Rico? Either give Puerto Rico independence or make them a fucking state and give them rights. The Democratic Party doesn't even talk about stuff like that. There was a bill called the For the People Act, H.R. 1, that would have solved political gerrymandering. Why didn't the Democrats pass it? It also would have given public financing for elections to undermine corporate money in our politics. Why didn't the Democrats pass it? Because they don't want to win. I'm not even talking about big radical policies. I'm talking about good government to make sure our elections are fair, that districts are fair, that every American citizen has representation in Congress. Why can't the Democrats even campaign on that? And instead, now we have a situation where the Senate is skewed towards Republicans. So they're having 30 senators because of the small states, and California has more population than 30 states combined. I think it's actually the 38 states combined or some fucking crazy number. And they have 2 senators? Why is this system okay? Because the Democrats are not fighting to win. We all know this is unfair. We all know it's undemocratic. Where is the Democratic Party? And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, Mike, why the Republicans do something bad and you blame the Democrats? And the answer is, I expect the right wing to do bad things. But we need an opposition party. If you want to stop the right wing, it isn't just pointing at the Republicans. When the Democrats come in, they don't do anything to fix it. That's why we're in this crisis, because people cannot get solutions from the Democratic Party. You can't win on, at least I'm not Republican. People need problems fixed. And I really need you to believe that we can fix them. Because if you believe we can't do anything, if you think you are civically educated because you believe we can't do anything, when I just showed you how the Democrats had the power to fix these problems and they passed on it. You are now the problem. You are the person that is against the politicians like Zohran Mamdani. Get it right. You're the problem. And I want to believe that you in your heart of hearts want change. If you in your heart of hearts want change, you have got to raise your standards. You cannot let politicians like Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton ever take power at our party again. These people are collaborators with the right wing, and they have put us in a position of complete defeat. And our constitutional order is falling apart to Donald Trump.
Power said for these cases to percolate up through the system. Well, we can't do that. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander is what Sotomayor points out in her dissent.
I mean, Danny brings up a great point, Paul. I mean, the next administration could be a Democratic administration. They may have certain issues that they want to push through, certain policies, and instead of going the legislative route, which oftentimes gets super bogged down, those administrations could just issue executive orders now, right? And they could, in effect, go into effect in parts of the country, if not the entire country, as long as their policy is not challenged by lawsuits in every single district court.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So as a formal matter, this opinion will apply to Democratic administrations and presidents as well as Republicans. And President Obama famously brought a bunch of executive orders that the Republicans didn't like. And to the extent that they were unconstitutional, they would now only, at least in the short term, be unconstitutional in one of the 94 districts where the person brought the lawsuit. So what the Supreme Court suggests in this opinion might be a way to resolve the patchwork quilt of rights that this decision creates is through class action lawsuits. Well, guess what? This court has been very busy limiting the right of people to bring class action. You have to be certified. The judge has to approve a number of issues. So it's difficult, especially in this case, the people who are likely.
Thank you for the love of, for the first time in history, an intelligent man was on MSNBC. And it wasn't just dumb shittery. He actually said, oh, you want to do class actions? You've made it harder to make class actions. It's the same thing they say about gerrymandering. The Supreme Court says gerrymandering, that's a political question, out of our hands. It's out of our hands, guys. It's we don't know a fair way to draw districts. It's impossible to figure out a fair way to, so the people should vote for the politicians if they don't want gerrymandering. And it's like, the whole point is, gerrymandering destroys democracy, you dumb fuck. The Supreme Court, especially conservative judges, are pure evil corruption. And there is no legal justification for what they say. They just pick random grabastic arguments to justify conservative outcomes. They are the most illogical and jurists to ever live. They are pure scum, like absolute pure scum. They've argued, for example, that actual innocence doesn't matter in a death penalty case. In other words, if you go to trial and are convicted, but evidence later emerges that you're actually innocent, the conservatives on the Supreme Court have said you should be executed anyway. That's what these fuckers believe. Here, let me see if I can find it. Scalia says actual innocence, not enough. In death row case, the Supreme Court says guilt is now beside the point. The Constitution, Scalia wrote, does not prevent the government from executing a person who new evidence indicates might be, quote, actually innocent. That is someone with the potential to legally demonstrate they did not commit the crime for which they were convicted. Scalia didn't make this point casually. It was the reason he wrote his opinion. Last week, Scalia's once fringe position became law. In Shin versus Ramirez, the court voted 6-3 to overrule two lower courts and disregard the innocence claims of Barry Lee Jones, a prisoner on Arizona's death row. It ruled that the federal courts are barred from even considering them. This is the reality of the conservative. These people are pure fucking evil. Oh, you're actually innocent and you can prove it? Too bad. Death penalty anyway. How could any person believe that's just? That flies in the face of justice. If God exists, you'll be cast into the pit of fire for that fucking opinion. That is pure, unadulterated, sadistic evil. There's no justification for that under any moral system. But pure legalistic proceduralism. It is a twisted bureaucrat's decision. Oh, you're innocent? Well, you know, the book says that you did all your procedures, so too bad. You fucking scum. And this is what we're fighting against. Why doesn't this get other people as mad as it gets me? I feel like I'm insane because I think innocent people being executed is wrong and we need to do something about it. And liberals will be yelling at me to be quiet because the system is fine. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Parents who are expecting a baby, do we really expect them to run to court, get a bunch of other people to agree with them? That's the only way that they can have the same rights that people in other states will have.
Wow. Face the Nation is using a picture with the Supreme Court flag upside down. Incredible.
I'm Lisa Rubin, and on this episode of Can They Do That, I'm joined by three...
Yes, they can. Yes, they fucking can. Holy shit, liberalism. Oh my God, we're gonna die because these fucking nerds are so scared to do anything but push their stupid papers around.
Wealthfront offers a cash account that has...
God, YouTube thinks I'm really rich.
One of the highest interest rates on the market.
Can you stop like showing the chat that I'm really rich, YouTube? Like, what the fuck? Stop saying that I'm super rich. Stop giving me rich people ads.
And Julia, of course, this impacts people right now who are looking at this decision, and you've done reporting within the immigrant communities.
Why aren't you using uBlock Origin right here? 4% interest on savings account? Yeah. Once you have money, they give you a lot of money for free. When you have money, they stop charging you for stuff. This is actually one of the things that's funny. When you have money, you stop getting charged for things. They're like, oh, you have money? You have this for free. Takes 2 minutes to get Firefox set up. Central Committee will do it next year, maybe. Is it gonna transfer all my passwords and everything? Is it gonna do it? Is it gonna fix it for me?
Someone born in the U.S. to undocumented parents and for the pregnant.
You don't remember your passwords? Are you insane? To make a safe password, you have to make gibberish. Not gonna remember that. What, are you gonna remember 80 different passwords? No one can do that.
Immigrant women who are part of this lawsuit.
Well, like so many guests have said, the court here, the justices, did not weigh in on the merits, but they're merely kicking the can down the road. They are staying those injunctions, of course, only, and the fact that they were nationwide. They're not weighing in on the constitutionality, but in the majority opinion, Justice Barrett did say, look, this isn't to go into effect until 30 days.
I need to get myself a third-party password manager. Chat's right.
After this opinion. So it does leave open the window that in 30 days, unless there is major movement and district courts, not only the district courts that brought these, where these cases were brought, but also in other courts around the country, that it very well could be that an undocumented immigrant or even on someone who is in the country legally but temporarily, if they don't have a green card, which happens very often, you may have a temporary status, you might be seeking asylum, that if you have a child here, they would not be a U.S. citizen. And the question also becomes then, what is the citizenship of the country where this person's from? Did they grant it based on the nationality of the parent? Or could you have a situation where there are simply children born in this country who don't have a real citizenship, where that is in question? This, of course, is something that's been enshrined in the 14th Amendment, and it's not something that the Trump administration argued should have been overturned. They merely argued that the courts were going too far here. And, of course, this could definitely work in other issues having to do with immigration.
Can we see the Amy Coney Barrett call out instead of her random fucking gibberish? I got tricked by the title. Shut the fuck up. What is the legal definition of a U.S. citizen? I don't fucking know. Seems like it doesn't exist, does it? CBS just did another interview with Zohran.
How are you feeling after Tuesday night? I'm feeling very good. I'm feeling very thankful. You know, the support that we saw from New Yorkers just in this first round, we received more votes than Eric Adams did in total in 2021. And it shows a mandate to deliver a city that New Yorkers can actually afford. That's going to be our focus over the course of this campaign and the administration. At what point in the night did it occur to you that you actually pulled it off? When Governor Cuomo called me. That was a moment when I realized that it wasn't just the early vote totals we were looking at, that this was in fact going to be something that would sustain through election night as well. And I appreciated his call, I appreciated his concession, and I told him what I've told New Yorkers since, which is that my focus is in bringing our party back together and leading this entire city, no matter whether a New Yorker voted for me or voted for Governor Cuomo or didn't vote at all out of frustration of a broken political system. I am going to represent them, and I want to lead them too. I mean, so you're running for mayor, which, yes, is high profile, but still a local job. Do you feel like you have the eyes of the whole Democratic Party on you right now? There are a lot of phone calls coming in from numbers that I hadn't had saved before. Ultimately, it's been quite lovely to speak to leaders across the country, to speak to Senator Schumer, to speak to Congressman Jeffries, to speak to Senator Warren, Senator Sanders, people who have showcased the not only ability but the results in fighting back against the Trump administration and showcasing what we need here in our city is also what is needed across the country, a place where people work too hard for too
Chat, can somebody link me the Kirsten Gillibrand freak out? Can somebody link me the Kirsten Gillibrand freak out? Because I really want to show you that after this conversation. Just so you understand that the centrist Democrats are our biggest enemy. Hassan Bammed an OG memer during that coverage. Oh boy. How long was this? How long was this talk? Okay, it's not that long. We'll listen to the whole thing. But first I want to show you Zohran, how normal he is, how good of a politician he is, and how much they're all trying to gang up on him to destroy him.
Little. And are losing faith in democracy's ability to deliver for them. And we have to finally showcase just that. I mean, as people are looking at you in some way as, oh, is this the future of the Democratic Party? How
How do you respond to that? What do you think the future of the Democratic Party should look like, and is it looking towards you?
I think it should look like anyone who's focused on working people, because ultimately that was what made me proud to become a Democrat, and so many Americans feel the same way, and yet for quite a while have felt as that we've left our roots, we've left our focus, and it's time to come back to that and show that Donald Trump's attempts to speak for working people are just looking to exploit the despair that they are living through, not actually sincerely responding to it with any kind of proposal that would deliver them out of it. And now is the time for us to put forward those ideas, those policies, and I think ultimately to also be honest about them. Because the thing I've found from New Yorkers is the thing that we hate more than a politician we disagree with is one we can't trust. And throughout this campaign, I've been very clear and consistent about what I believe, and also that there may be those who disagree with me, and I still tell them in the words of Mayor Koch, if you agree with me on 9 out of 12 issues, vote for me. 12 out of 12, see a psychiatrist.
So now that you're shifting from the primary to the general election, how do you reach the voters who are independent, more moderate, who shy away from the word socialism?
You know, we won a number of neighborhoods that Donald Trump won. And these are neighborhoods like Bath Beach, like Bensonhurst, like Astoria Heights, like College Point, places where you would never describe as progressive. And yet we won them by focusing on a message of affordability, because it is a message that binds all New Yorkers. And I've actually found that it's just as compelling to independents and Republicans as it is to Democrats. And even in polling around our major policy proposals of freezing the rent, making buses fast and free, delivering universal child care, we found sustained support amongst independents and even Republicans. And I think about the young man who drove up to me on election night on his motorcycle, took his helmet off, asked me if he could vote. And we looked up his registration. He was registered as a Republican. And he said, well, I'm sad. I hope that you win so I can vote for you in November. And I think that there are many such New Yorkers.
Yeah, so today, Mayor Adams launched his campaign as an independent. Cuomo says he's weighing whether to run as an independent.
I think he should declare all out war, become a warrior, drop the smiling act. People in a leftist strongman, they're not quite there yet. They're not quite there yet, folks. Left-wingers want you to be the perfect victim, all right? Like, I'm there, but regular people are not quite there yet. Something really evil has to happen to him where he's completely innocent, then he can be angry. They don't want that yet. They want a happy warrior. So you let him pick his spot. I know he's got that in him.
Independent. If they both run, they could share some votes. So do you want Cuomo to run in this general election?
Ultimately, I'm confident of winning this race no matter who's running in it, because what we've seen is that we're bringing people back to the Democratic Party, and we're stitching together a coalition that Eric Adams himself had in 2021, but we're going beyond it, and we're going to actually deliver for that coalition as opposed to betray them in the manner that he has.
So you don't think it matters if you're running against just the mayor, against both the mayor and the governor?
I've said from the beginning of this race that I am going to be critiquing disgraced executives of the past and the present. And ultimately, we've defeated one, and now's the time to defeat the next.
Your critics say you ran on these promises that a mayor doesn't have the authority to deliver on: free buses, raising taxes. What's your strategy for accomplishing all that?
Building the movement that brought us to this point. Those are the same critics who would have told you we couldn't even clear 5% when we launched this campaign. And we won this race without even going to ranked choice voting. Ultimately, it's a sign of a different kind of politics. And I'm already hearing from colleagues in the state legislature their excitement on delivering back to working people. And I know that there's a hunger for these very proposals.
Are there any voters that you didn't get a chance to reach out to, or you didn't feel like you reached out to enough in the primary that you're really going to be focusing on in the general?
There are so many. And part of it is because when I started this race, I was at 1% name recognition. That's being charitable to myself. And there were many doors that I could not open, many churches that I could not visit, many synagogues that hadn't heard of me. And ultimately, as we got closer to Election Day, those doors started to open. But there's only so many visits you can do in the last few months. And now we have been given this gift of a few more months to introduce myself again and make sure that New Yorkers know who I am beyond the more than $20 million that was spent in 30-second attack ads or mailers or radio commercials, and say who I am and what I'm fighting for, and that the person I'm looking to represent is them.
You have to remember that left-wingers are generally nicer, happier. They're like kinder people in general. The main problem with left-wingers is they're more depressed. Like in general, but they tend to like good vibes and happy people and niceness, okay? People like me are much more rare on the left. Angry people don't typically exist on the left. The right is where a lot of anger resides, and that's where resentment, anger, sadism exists. So if you want to be a leader of left-leaning people, typically being happy and optimistic and joyful is much better of a strategy. However, you need to have fifth gear. All right. You need to have that fifth gear where you like fight back. That's the ultimate. All right. Most of the time you should be laughing at these right wingers, but occasionally when you need to, do a knockout blow to the right enemy, to the right target, you need that. And that's Bernie Sanders had that in general. Like he would talk about the billionaires, but he never really had fifth gear for an individual. And what I like about Zohran is he seems to have that gear. Like if you watch the debate, he was saying, I didn't resign in disgrace. He had that pop. So that's why I like him so much. He has a little bit of that. As I said before, his hate is pure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to see
Such
you.
a pleasure.
But he's very charming. Now I want you to listen to that. Now I want you to listen to the unhinged reaction of Gillibrand to him.
3-3 WNYC 4-3 News is the apparent victory.
Yesterday, I congratulated him on his victory, and I raised some issues that, if he does become the mayor, will be very important that we not only work on together, but I raised some concerns that I had.
Right off the bat, a major Democratic politician talking to another Democratic nominee, and before the election, and saying, if you win. What? And saying that publicly. So is she trying to undermine the Democratic Party? I thought this is vote blue no matter who. What happened?
What issues, what concerns?
Well, I congratulated him on his laser-like focus on affordability. He was an excellent communicator in talking to New Yorkers about the challenges that they have.
Whenever somebody says someone is an excellent communicator as the first thing they're saying, this is politician speak for, he's a really good liar. Okay? If you like someone and you agree with them, you don't talk about their communication skills. You say how their ideas are good, they're a good leader, they're an inspirer. If you're like, your communication skills is good, you're saying the person is a good liar and a good charlatan. It's been utterly delicious, the most delicious of moral treats. That's not what moral means. To watch you crash out over the SCOTUS ruling. I'm not crashing out. I'm pointing out that liberals are shit, as usual. Little Gump, I'll be there. He literally crushed Cuomo's ass, bro. You guys are so... Trump Liquor 77. You create your account. You don't get to post on a new account. You have to post on your main, man. You don't get to post on 11-minute-old accounts. Imagine trying to taunt me after the most delicious fucking landslide victory, proving all of my arguments correct. What a fucking dummy. Anyway, okay.
Affordable housing is top of mind for the work I do in the Senate. I'm now on the Appropriations Committee, so I'm in charge of really focusing resources for affordable housing as well as transportation and mass transit. And I talked about the importance of talking about food security. It's not right in this country, as powerful as we are, that any child or any senior goes to bed hungry. And that's something
Wait, so what's so wrong with him? You're backing him on mass transit. You're backing him on food desert resolution. What's your big problem with him then? I'm intrigued.
Focused on for a long time, especially food deserts. And so one of his ideas about food deserts was getting government more involved in providing grocery stores. I have legislation about creating public-private partnerships.
Public-private partnerships? Oh, I'm a neoliberal. Oh, I'm gonna come. Oh, the government's gonna give money to connected fucking capitalists. Oh, I'm gonna come. Oh, God, we gotta give government money to a rich person. We need more government handouts to the rich. Yeah, I'm gonna come. Like, this is if you hear the phrase public-private partnerships, it's bullshit.
Do exactly that, and so that might be an area where we can work on together. And he also focused on the fact that costs for not only housing and food, but for everyday life continues to go up. And so whether it's medicine or other costs, those are areas we can work on together. And so I introduced myself, told them the things I work on, and I raised the two issues with public statements about Israel that gave me concern, and I raised the issue of public safety, which is really important for New Yorkers.
What did you ask him to do with respect to either of those?
Well, I'm not going to disclose our conversation because these are personal conversations.
Chat, Vio gave me breakfast. It's a protein shake. Thanks, Vio.
But I raised them on behalf of constituents who had deep concerns about those very, very exact issues.
Well, is there even a potential world in which you might support Eric Adams running as an independent, or Andrew Cuomo, if he also does that, over the Democratic nominee?
I vote in Albany, so while I have followed the New York City race, my voting is in upstate New York, and I have tried to leave this.
By the way, this statement in and of itself should be disqualifying. The Democratic Party is going to give up New York City? Get him out. Get her out.
Voters of New York. Obviously, I will work with whoever is mayor, as I will always do. And my focus this week is entirely on this ridiculous reconciliation package that President Trump is shoving down the throats of Republican senators. And that reconciliation package alone will be very destructive for New York City. So whoever wins
As
this
somebody
race,
in New York, does calling her accomplish anything? Yes. You should absolutely call her and say she should either endorse Mamdani or resign.
I will be working with them to make sure these Medicaid cuts do not result in people without health care, and these cuts to SNAP don't result in people going hungry. But it's a very challenging time, and we need leaders who understand what people are going through and find solutions to make a difference.
Is this consistent with your history? Since you've been in the Senate, have you not endorsed the Democrat for mayor of New York City in the previous cycles, one way or another?
I don't know that I've endorsed candidates for mayor in the past in New York City, and I don't know that I've been asked by those candidates. So it's just not something that I typically do.
You haven't gone to rallies for Democratic candidates, because we're talking about the general election now, not different Democrats against each other in the primary, but running against Republicans and non-Democratic independents. It was not automatic for you in the past. You just stayed out of it.
So generally, that's accurate.
So I just want to tell you that she's a fucking liar. Among the Democrats who endorsed Adams on Monday were U.S. Senators Kirsten Gillibrand and Charles Schumer, though they did not make appearances at the rally. State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli, U.S. Representatives Gregory Meeks, Grace Menge, and Gerald Nadler all stood by Adams as they endorsed him. Meeks, Menge, and Nadler had all each previously endorsed other candidates in the primary. This was August 3rd, 2021. She's a fucking liar. Point blank, a liar.
But this is not going to be a race of one Democrat versus one Republican. I think it may be a much more complex race because multiple people.
He's not a Democrat. If you're an independent, you're not a Democrat. The Democratic Party has made their selection. If you run as an independent, you're running against the Democratic Party, and to win, you're going to need the right. This is disqualifying primary Gillibrand now.
We'll have multiple lines. But again, I respect New York voters. And as I said, what I think the Democratic nominee did well was laser-like focus on affordability. And it's the number one issue in the state right now. It's the number one issue in every part of New York. And it's the most important thing for Democrats to be focused on is how do we help people afford housing? How do we help them afford food, and how do we help them afford providing for their kids? And the Trump administration is not helping us at all with his irrational approach towards tariffs, with his engagement in war with Iran. It is a huge problem for communities, for families, for businesses, just to afford the everyday things that their children and their families need. So that's where my focus has been.
All right, let me take one call on this, and then we will move on to the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, which I see you're calling the Big Beautiful Betrayal, and the U.S. bombing of Iran with you on the Armed Services Committee. But Gwadia in Queens, you're on WNYC with Senator Gillibrand, and you want to talk about the nomination of Mamdani, right?
Yeah, so I'm interested because, now that he has become the Democratic nominee, I was just going to ask my senator if she's willing to support him for the general election. That's really my question, and I'll hang up on this.
So you heard the answer. Did you have any reaction to that answer?
If I have any reaction, well, I feel like, he did pretty well campaigning. I did actually, did some campaigning for him as well, even though I do have a full-time shift working and all that stuff. But in between, I was doing a couple of things for him. I feel like he pulled his soul and also his effort to try to win this. And
this poor guy's nervous. Probably first politician he's ever volunteered for, and this fucking scum ass, disgusting parasite. No, vote blue no matter who. Vote blue no matter who. Notice how it's not happening. So many liberals predicted it would be, but it's not.
I don't know. I just feel like he should have more support, and that's basically it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your call. I appreciate it. With Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, 212-433 WNYC 433-9692. Call or text. All right, Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill, which they are hoping to get through the Senate before the July 4th recess. I see you have a press release calling it the big, beautiful betrayal. Why is that?
It's a big, beautiful betrayal because he's cutting lifelines for so many Americans. The bill is going to cut 14 million Americans off of their health care, both not only requirements for Affordable Care Act, but also requirements under Medicaid that will make it impossible for people to receive health care. So that's one gut punch. It's about $1 trillion of cuts to healthcare, and sending that $1 trillion instead of funding healthcare to billionaires and people who are getting massive tax breaks. That's the biggest problem with the bill. The second thing is it will be the largest cut to food security in our nation's history. It'll cut about $300 billion out of the SNAP program. If you don't know what SNAP is, it's food assistance. So it funds programs like Meals on Wheels. It funds medically tailored meals for veterans. It funds school and summer program lunch food for kids. It funds almost every imaginable funding for food banks and food security. So it's just going to mean people will go hungry and people will have a lot more challenges in their life. It does a lot of other things in terms of green energy and making sure we have green jobs and making it harder for people to put their money in places that help keep our country green and clean air and clean water. So that's going to be problematic. Of the tax cuts that we used to have for people to make their house more energy efficient, install insulation, do heat pumps or solar panels, energy efficient windows and doors, all of that's going to be deleted. So it just means less people will be able to afford helping keep our air and water clean.
How much of what you don't like in the bill can Democrats and some dissenting Republicans stop?
So right now I haven't heard of which Republicans will side with us. What we've been able to stop so far is a lot of things that were in the bill that were overreaches that weren't appropriate for a tax bill. The purpose of a reconciliation bill is to do tax policy and to lower the debt.
Don't you love that you only need 51 votes to lower taxes, but if you want to do any programs that are going to help people, you need 60 votes. It's weird how the Senate's priorities seem to be set up so the Republicans could do everything they want, cut programs and taxes with 51 votes, but Democrats can't do anything they want without 60. Very odd.
This bill increases the debt by $3 trillion. So it also had a lot of policy in it that it's not allowed.
Guys, I really don't care about her opinion on I don't care about her thoughts on that.
One question. I wanted to ask two very pertinent questions about the threats facing the Jewish community, unfortunately, from Zohran Mamdani. there was a bill that I was reading about that, unfortunately, he wants to target synagogues and Jewish institutions which donate to nonprofits, which are medical institutions like United Hatzalah and Magan David Adam, which is like the Jewish Red Cross.
So Zohran has a bill that says that you should not be able to have tax breaks for donating to settler groups that occupy or build illegally in settled land in the West Bank. It's revoking your tax exempt status if you do illegal settlement. That's what the bill he's talking about is.
How do we make sure that Jewish institutions are protected from his plans to punish and fine our institutions which fundraise these medical nonprofits, which do work both here in the United States and in Israel and other countries in the world? And also, how can we hold Mr. Mamdani accountable for his glorifying association of Hamas and other terror bombings of the Intifada in 1990s, where over 1,000 Jewish Israelis were killed, to his revisionist Holocaust knowledge, to the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, where Jews were mass exterminated and faced threats? He compared when Jews were killed to when Jews fought back against Nazis. It's quite despicable. I'm sorry.
Gabe, thank you for...
None of that is true. Every single thing he just said was a lie. It's very important to understand with Zionists and fascists in general, they're liars. They have absolutely no interest in the truth. They're there to manipulate you and lie for their fascist agenda. That caller was a liar and a knowing one.
For your call, there's a lot in there, Senator, some of which may be inaccurate. So I don't know. I can't fact check everything in real time, but do you know any of that to be inaccurate or accurate, including the original premise that he would somehow target synagogues if they were contributing to groups like Hatzalah, ambulance services, in a way that he could hurt the synagogues? I just don't want to give out information that's false, but I also don't want to shrink from information that's true.
Well, the caller is exactly the New York constituents that I've spoken to that are alarmed. They are alarmed by past public statements. They are alarmed by past positions, particularly references to global jihad.
At no point has Zohran Mamdani called for global jihad. This is just batshit crazy lies.
This is a very serious issue because people that glorify the slaughter of Jews create fear in our communities. The global intifada is a statement that means destroy Israel and kill all the Jews.
That's not what it means. This is a point blank Islamophobic lie. And this is who the Democratic Party is. This is why we have to fight against them. And we need to primary almost every single one of them, especially the people like Kirsten Gillibrand that have been in lockstep for the Israeli genocide since day one.
So these are the kinds of things that if Mr. Mamdani is elected our mayor, we'll need to assure all New Yorkers that he will protect all Jews and protect houses of worship and protect funding for not-for-profits that meet the needs of these communities. Those are the things he'll have to do as our mayor.
He would certainly say that he has committed to protecting all Jews in New York as mayor of New York. Do you dispute? Do you doubt that?
Well, one of the issues I did talk to him yesterday was exactly this issue, and he has agreed to work with me on this and to protect all residents.
Here's general my feeling about this and Zohran. Like I know at Zohran it's very difficult to try to like change the entire conversation by yourself as a single candidate, which is why I am not expecting him to be able to change the conversation. I'm going to change the conversation. You're going to change the conversation. I trust him. Maybe I'm wrong. He's a politician. I trust him to be good on Palestine. I am not going to make him go out there and change the conversation. I'm going to change the conversation. Kirsten Gillibrand needs to be dealt with politically. We have to put pressure on her. You have to raise your voice to tell her to endorse him and to stop spreading these blatant lies. Disgusting.
So this is something I care deeply about, and so I will be an advocate on these issues. These are things that I think are important to New Yorkers, and I will work with him when he gets elected, if he gets elected, to make sure everyone is protected. I also, on the federal level, work to get resources for all our religious sites in the state and in the city. I lead the letter for funding for I lead the letter for the funding to protect synagogues and churches and temples and places of worship across our city and state. And these are things that he has assured me in my one conversation, that he will protect everyone. But I understand why people are concerned because of past statements. And so this is just an issue that I will work with him on for sure.
Hanny in Prospect Heights, you're on WNYC with Senator Gillibrand. Hello, Hanny.
Senator, good morning. So we all obviously care a great deal about public radio. We wouldn't be listening to you right now if we didn't. So from your perch on the Appropriations Committee, tell us what you can about the rescission package. Where is it going, and what are you doing to get your Republican colleagues to oppose it? I know that there are a few of your colleagues who are very concerned about the effect this rescission will have.
Okay, I think this is that it? Is that it? Oh, okay, he does more.
Best in trying to spread democracy, authoritarianism rises. When you have authoritarianism rising across the globe, it's most they're
on Mamdani. I just feel compelled to say we can find no evidence that he has supported Hamas or has supported violent jihad, as that caller was asserting.
She said it. She said it.
Can you?
Again, Brian, I don't have all the data and information, and I've never sat down with Mr. Mamdani. So I've asked to have that meeting. I'm going to have that meeting. We will talk through all these things. He can tell me his views of the world, and I can learn them firsthand. I think the reference that I had read was global intifada specifically. Which has very...
Basically, this is just this is full-blown Islamophobic anti-Arab racism. That's all it is. It's, oh, this is an Arab-sounding word, Arabic-sounding word. Arab scary, Arab scary. He said Arab. Did you know he's Muslim? It's a racist. It's not even a dog whistle. It's a racist bull. Actually, it's just racist. She's just a fucking racist, period.
Serious meanings that are violent and destructive.
Right now, Israel, it was just reported, and we covered it earlier, that Israel is shooting unarmed civilians begging for food, that they're starving to death from the orders from high command, and she's talking about violence?
So,
which he says, and I pressed him on this on the show on Monday, but which he says are not calls for violence, because intifada is a much broader term, involving all kinds of uprisings and resistance and things like that. So I just want to be clear about how at least he defines it. And maybe he needs to be more clear. I don't mean this, I don't mean that. He did say here that he didn't want to be the word police, even as the mayor of New York, if he's elected. But I do also want to be clear that he said he does not support violent intifada. Is that fair?
So, Brian, I didn't hear your exchange with him, but if I was speaking to him directly, I would simply say that is not how the words are received. And it doesn't matter what meaning you have in your brain. It is not how the word is received.
He said an Arab word. We hate that.
And when you use a word like intifada to many Jewish Americans and Jewish New Yorkers, that means you are permissive for violence against Jews. It is a serious word. It is a word that has deep meaning. It has been used for wars across time and violence and destruction and slaughter and murder against the Jews. It is a harmful, hurtful, inappropriate word for anyone who wants to represent a city as diverse as New York City with 8 million people. And I would be very specific in these words, and I would say you may not use them again if you expect to represent everyone ever again, because they are received as hateful and divisive and harmful. And that's it. So I appreciate that he told you he didn't mean that, and that's great. That's a great place to start.
Also clarify, or he was clarifying that he never said globalize the Intifada. He was asked in an interview if he would denounce the phrase globalize the Intifada, and then that led to the kind of conversation, that you were just referring to, but that he was never out there saying globalize the Intifada. He was asked about other people who used it. So just to be precise about what happened there. Yes.
She was saying that he wants to globalize the jihad because he said that he's not going to denounce it because it has other meanings. And now she says he's in favor of global jihad. You see how quickly that went from, he said global jihad, when in fact he had just refused to denounce someone because there was a meaning that he understood. You see how quickly these anti-fucking Arab racists shift the conversation? What a disgusting rat.
Leader of a city as diverse as New York City with 8 million people, as the largest Jewish population in the country, he should denounce it. And that's it. Period.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And I swear to God that we will bring fucking retribution for these fucking genociders. It's gonna happen. I don't care if it happens tomorrow, next year, or in 20 fucking years. We're gonna rip down any edifice that has your name etched, any award, any title. We're gonna rip it down. Disgusting.
And you can't celebrate it, you can't value it, you can't lift it up. And that is the challenge that Jewish New Yorkers have had, certainly since October 7th. It is exactly what they have felt. It is why Jewish students in our universities have felt unsafe. It is why Jewish students have
Notice how everything is about feelings while there's a genocide that's killing kids and killing civilians by the hundreds of thousands. They're talking about feelings. They're feeling bad because they support a country that's committing genocide and people are protesting it. Can you imagine that argument in civil rights? Oh, we have so many white students from Alabama and Columbia, and they feel so uncomfortable when you guys protest, Jim Crow. Oh, we have students from South Africa, and they get so uncomfortable when you protest apartheid. What are you talking about?
That their schools did not have their backs and cared about them or their learning, because the people doing these protests use words that have meanings that are far more violent and horrific than they may have intended. But when you hear things like intifada, when you hear things like jihad, when you hear from the river to the sea, it is received as slaughter the Jews and destroy Israel. Period. It's how it's.
You invented that. Oh, you're saying free rights, equal rights for all? Well, I received that as kill all white people. That's an insane position. What are you talking about?
Received. And if you talk to any group, you talk to our LGBTQ community, you talk to our Black community, you talk to our Hispanic community, there are words and there are imagery and there are things that are said that they will hear it and feel it as a dagger to their throat. And so if you want to be a leader, you have to recognize how these things are felt and received, and saying there should be no word police is irresponsible. Because as a leader, you have to protect everyone. Period.
One more thing before you go. For you as a member of the Armed Services Committee, the U.S. bombing of Iran. Did you support or oppose engaging militarily like that? And do you think President Trump exceeded his authority by launching a major military strike on another country without Congress's approval? The Constitution gives Congress the power to declare war.
President Trump does not have the power to declare war. He should not have engaged militarily without checking with.
What a disgusting rat. What a disgusting fucking rat. Jesus Christ. This is what I mean about the Democratic Party. That's why trying to win over the Democratic Party is such a bad idea. It's such a bad idea. I know Zohran just won the primary, but even when you win, they don't back you. Do you see what I said? Exactly what I predicted that happened. You win the Democratic primary, centrist Dems decamp the party. I told you it would happen. It's fucking happening right in front of your eyes. Why are you running for a party that has a fucking dog shit approval rating? Can we leave this party? and start a new one, and I can tell you the American people would fucking love it. They would flow to this. Maybe it would take a cycle or two, but for the love of God, we need to get rid of all of them. There's rarely anybody who's worth saving. What, 40 Congress people max? Let's be honest. Maybe 5 senators? What are we doing?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, all passengers. You are currently on the J train. Inshallah, we'll be at the next stop in 7 minutes. Alhamdulillah. Have a good day, and remember, Allahu Akbar.
New York Senator misspoke when she falsely claimed Zohran and Mamdani condone global jihad. Primary her. Primary her. Primary her. Get her out of office. She endorsed Cuomo after calling for him to resign. She is one of the most corrupt, evil sacks of shit. She lied about not endorsing Eric Adams. She did. What a scumbag. XQC showed his gambling statistics on accident. He has wagered $3.5 billion. This is why these people hate me and Hassan, because we think this crypto gambling shit is really bad. And that advertising gambling to kids is bad. And yes, I also hate DraftKings. This is a 10% win rate. Meanwhile, his gambling addiction is being fed by all of his audience members that make accounts and lose money, bankrupting themselves, and he probably gets paid a vig. He might even get rakebacks. He might get all sorts of favorable gambling terms so that he can keep gambling forever while all of you have your pockets drained. It's so fucking disgusting that these people have decided to become fascists to feed their gambling addiction. We have an entire platform set up to funnel people toward gambling and to do criminal behavior and stalking behavior, advertising pornography to kids, abusing underage people, doing like, it's actually disgusting, man. These people didn't used to be like this, but because it's gambling, they have to adjust their entire life and the entire platform around this gambling addiction. And people, I can't shake people out of this. I can't shake people out of this delusion because I'm one of the bad ones to these people.
And I'm hearing from, various people here in New York, and they're concerned about their safety living here with a Muslim mayor, and that's the problem.
Highly probable.
Hold on.
They shouldn't because of hold on.
Quiet part was said out loud. Quiet part was said out loud. Everybody scramble.
Hold on. We talked about this yesterday, and since you brought it up, might as well bring it up again. The idea that because he is Muslim, he is a threat to Jewish New Yorkers? Is that really what you're saying?
No, it's because of his anti-Israel rhetoric that he's been putting out.
But what does that have to do with him being Muslim? I think this is where things, you can go after his policies, but what does that have to do with his faith?
Because they're genocidal Zionists who hate Muslims. This is how Zionist groups got Corbyn to apologize for people's feelings. What does it matter if they're sincere? There are people that sincerely believe their nurse is stealing their mail, or hosts of Entertainment Tonight are sending them psychic messages. Jerry Corbyn, labor is not a threat to Jewish life in Britain. Please, God, I'm going to be reaching out to Mamdani'S staff, and I'm going to be telling them, do not be Corbyned. Do not let them make you apologize. If they want to talk about Israel, talk about the genocide. The American people are with you. We don't want to send money to Israel. We don't want to be a part of this genocide. Do not back down. Don't let these people make it about Judaism. Say you hate anti-Semitism and then talk about what Israel. Every time they bring up Israel, bring up the genocide. They'll stop asking. That's how you make them shut the fuck up. If you start going like, oh, I care about hate crimes. Oh, I hate anti. Oh, we'll do everything we can to stamp it out. Like, you're just falling for their fucking trap. There is no anti-Semitism on the left. None. Absolutely none. I have never in my entire career, spanning the course of 11 years in politics, ever seen a single instance of anti-Semitism on the left. Not one time. Not one slur. Not one anti-Semitic joke. Nothing. Ever. It's total bullshit. And if I did see such a thing, that person would be immediately removed. It's a total lie. There is no truth to it whatsoever. None. And the people saying it is because they're supporting a far-right government in Israel that is killing men, women, and children and wanton genocide, and they're distracting you from bullshit. Do I have E-Up Lovely, my incredible mutual and friend, who has never made a single anti-Semitic comment in his entire life? Absolutely. He's so cool, and you should all follow him. These are the hate crimes. Anti-Muslim hate crime assaults. These are the fucking hate crimes.
It's not about his faith. It's because he is perpetuating this anti-Israeli rhetoric, and New Yorkers are hearing it, and they're scared. That's what I'm hearing back from friends.
He's aimed at
Bibi.
in that beat. He's aimed at a lot at Bibi. He did the interview with Mehdi Hassan, and he aimed at Bibi, not necessarily.
But Abby, he's Muslim. Who cares? That's not the point here.
The fucking genocidal Zionists do. That's they hate Muslims. They're worried about any Muslims getting any power because they think Muslims will think Palestinians are human beings. That's why.
His policies are the problem.
Liberals claim their reasoning for espousing vote blue no matter who was that they're good people who don't believe in risky Republican rule to make a point. And additionally, that socialists and moderate Dems are basically on the same side. Could it be that they were lying? Listen, I need y'all to stop telling black folks who to vote for in New York. Now y'all want us to vote blue no matter who. Where the fuck was that in November for Kamala? Now that he needs all the votes, he now wants us to unite. I think the fuck not. I want you to understand, chat. Here's what I want you to understand. If you believe, and if you voted for Kamala Harris, you're a sucker. You're a fucking sucker. You fell for it. No risk of Republican rule in 2025. Who do you think Eric Adams is allied with, you dumb fuck? You mean partisan centrist Dems are exactly the kind of petty parasocial narcissists they always accuse the left of being? I want you all to understand that we are in the fight of our lives.
Castro's in for the surprise of his life when he tries signing something with my poison pen. Well, what have Palestinians done for the Black Lives Matter movement?
I need to start interact. This guy seems pretty cool.
You lisping, limp-wristed, sashily sashaying, STD storing, sperm swishing, enema enjoying, burlesque, butt bandit, freak of nature, flouncy, fudge packing, clear! Don't you know they hate gay people in Gaza?
Oh my god! Dude, he's so funny. Holy shit. Everyone follow Noah Way Babes. Holy shit.
Welcome to a day in my life in Ayatollah Mamdani'S new socialist Islamic Caliphate of New York City. We, of course, wake up and the first thing we do is we must pray to Allah because we've all been converted to Islam, but we love it. No God but God. Despite Supreme Leader Donald Trump's best efforts, abortions are not yet illegal in the socialist caliphate of New York City. And thanks to Ayatollah Mamdani'S free childcare, I have carried all 8 of my pregnancies to term because the basket he gives you when you give birth has a Louis Vuitton bag in it. Thank you, taxpayers. Then I head out to my $30 an hour minimum wage job. Despite my new lucrative salary almost closing the wage gap between me and the billionaires, Ayatollah Mamdani made buses free. So now I ride them every day with the criminals he released from jail and the former homeless people who now live in affordable housing. Then I head to one of the city-run grocery stores. Gristetti's is closed for good, but this one is just as expensive. But it doesn't matter anymore because Comrade Mamdani made sure all city grocery stores can only
$11 pesto sauce.
Charge the same price for everything. That's communism.
$5.
So after cleaning house at the grocery store, I made sure to run down to the East River so I could watch the nightly drownings of the billionaires. Inshallah, am I right?
Fuck. TikTok is just... I'm becoming a TikTok enjoyer, chat. I'm letting myself embrace the brainworm. Democratic Socialist Summer.
And Zohran Mamdani will be your next New York City mayor.
Excuse me, is this the line for the Hamas meet and greet?
Hello, I would like to enter the subway.
All right, sir, and your fare is one newborn Caucasian baby.
Okay, son, soon-to-be daughter, enjoy your free gender reassignment surgery at school, fully funded by taxpayers.
Dad, I want you to meet someone. This is my boyfriend, Jamal.
We love it, don't we, folks?
a dirty word, man, because all socialism is where, you know, they want to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor, and they want to make sure everybody has access to their basic necessities. And, you know, when government intervention is needed for somebody to, you know, have those basic necessities, then it can happen, you know, whether it's healthcare, education, housing, just aiming to improve the overall well-being of citizens. You know, that is what socialism is. That's why I like when Mamdani uses the word affordability, when he says, you know, let's talk affordability. And I said that to him when he was here. I'm like, Democrats can come up with all types of other language, right? They'll say pregnant person and all this other goofy stuff. How come they can't come up with a better way to talk about socialism? Because people try to demonize socialism, but when you actually look under the hood to what, you know, it is, hell yeah, you would want your basic necessities dealt with.
Right, and as I understood it, or as I read it, it does, like you said, it closes the gap, but it also gives the people more of a voice. Is that correct too?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just talking about the financial aspect of it. I don't know. It's crazy.
All right, beautiful. But listen, this is called moving the Overton window. It's important that we sandblast the fear away, right? And you draw people in. You draw people in. You draw people in. The vibes are shifting back. The Democrats are in shambles. Fuck their... Oh my God, the scum, man. Zohran, much like Ilhan Omar, is one of the most progressive politicians in America and has been called a Sharia-supporting jihadist by actual white Christian fundamentalists who want to do Christian Sharia and advocate for more death all around the world. Yeah, did I see that? Bernie just tweeted as well. Zohran is giving Bernie hope, which is funny.
What Zohran understood is that in order to win, you got to be more than charismatic, and he is. You got to be more than smart, which he is. You got to build a strong grassroots movement around a progressive agenda. He had thousands and thousands of people knocking on doors because they were excited about his message. And his message said, you know what? In a time of unprecedented income and wealth inequality, yeah, we are going to ask the richest people in New York City to start paying their fair share of taxes. So among other things, we can address the major crisis facing New York and America, by the way, is soaring housing costs. They're going to freeze rent at a time when families can't afford decent quality food. He's talking about helping to create publicly funded grocery stores so that kids can get food that's affordable, making buses free. He's giving people a positive agenda, not just going after Trump, but giving something that people can believe in, an analysis which reflects their reality. So I thought it was a great campaign, and I look forward to continue to work with him.
Mamdani won. The establishment is in panic. Billionaires are raising money against him. Trump is ranting. Islamophobes are on the loose. You know what we know. Candidates who stand boldly with the working class can not only win in New York City, but anywhere. Let's stand with Zohran. What I want you to know, and I want you to really, truly believe.
So there's a few really interesting things about Zohran's race that I don't think are being talked a lot about by the pundits and pollsters on TV, who are the same ones saying that he had no chance of winning at all just up until a few weeks ago, which is, it was an incredibly positive campaign. Everywhere I was, when I talked to people about Zohran, their faces instantly lit up. They were excited, especially younger people. And he himself is just so magnetic. When I was in Washington Square Park with him, I've never seen so many young people show up, unannounced, talking to a political candidate with genuine hope in their eyes, that they feel like somebody finally is listening to them, that they feel like somebody is there to actually fight for them. And to see so much infectious positivity by a candidate was really inspiring. And I think that really was key to the success of a lot of this campaign. The changes in polling that we saw were just up until a few months ago. Zohran was at 1% or less in most polls. That doesn't happen just with money. That happens with people, tens of thousands of people that showed up and helped to make the campaign possible, volunteers that made the campaign possible. And what we saw was a campaign that was in many ways modeled similar to a social movement, where, it's not necessarily an incredibly large bureaucracy and incredibly well organized or anything like that. Of course it was to some extent, but more than anything, if you have a compelling enough message, people will show up and support it, and they'll get their friends to support it, and those friends will get their friends to support it, and it just grows exponentially. And that's what we saw in this campaign. The message was so compelling, it didn't need to have tens of millions of dollars put behind it to advertise it, because people advertised it themselves and got involved and knocked on doors and talked to people about voting for Zohran. And that is one of the most effective ways of getting people to actually vote in the first place. And this is there is a bigger lesson for the Democratic Party to take from this that we've seen time and time again throughout this party. The moments when we are strongest, whether it is when President Barack Obama is running for office the first time, or whether it's people like AOC getting elected or others, is when there is a candidate who is running that is inspiring us to believe not in the politics of the probable and just saying like, well, this is this tiny, small crumb that I think we can fight for and maybe get, but inspires people to believe in what actually might be possible. And it reminds me of one thing that I asked Dolores Huerta when I was at a protest a few years ago with her. I said, what is the most important thing that you need to do to be able to create change to, for younger activists to know? And she said, you have to, it's not a matter of whether or not it's actually possible. More often than not, the biggest obstacle is whether or not people believe change is possible. And that's what you have to do to create it. You have to make people believe that change is actually possible. And that's exactly what Zohran did in this race. He inspired people to believe in the politics of the possible and inspired us to imagine what type of city New York City could be. Not just saying what it might be if we just do, if we just focus on the politics of the probable, but instead what it could be and how it could actually address everyday New Yorkers' problems. That's how he won this campaign. Despite tons of money going against him from the same New Yorker, from the same people, the same billionaires that were backing Donald Trump were also funding his opponents. Despite that, the people showed up. They advertised his message and they turned out by the tens of thousands to help get him elected.
But they don't care, David. They don't care. They don't care about the truth. They don't want to win. They don't want to motivate young people. They don't want to motivate the next generation. They don't even want to win, except in a way where they can take bribes. They're just seat fillers, my man. They don't believe in goddamn anything.
Him elect to help move this election forward and get him one step closer to being mayor of New York City. And that's the message that we need to take in the Democratic Party from this. Is what we need more than anything is an inspiring message of what our country could be, that people genuinely feel like the person who is saying it actually believes. Because when they see that, even if they don't completely agree with them, at least they know what they're actually thinking, and they know that they're not another politician.
Well, chat, today is Friday, which means it is movie night. So every Friday we get together and we watch a movie. The past 3 to 4 weeks we've been watching Andor. And last Friday, we finished it. Season 2. And I think everybody wanted to watch Rogue One tonight. So we'll be doing that on the Discord. We'll be finishing the story of Cassian Andor with the unfortunately much worse, still solid, but much worse movie than the show. We will be probably watching, so I kind of want to watch Mississippi Masala. That seems like it would be a really fun thing. So that'll probably be next week. Let me see what we have scheduled. So make sure you come hang out. We do that at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Every Friday we do a movie night. So here's the Discord. So we will be doing that. All right. What else did we want to talk about? Just make sure everybody is my favorite Andor related clip from my streams. Oh, okay. Star Wars subreddit. Politics is banned. Andor subreddit. Tie me to a missile and fire it at Tel Aviv. I am ready. Oh my my God. 5,000 upvotes. Let's fucking go. I love it so much, man. Trump says he will hit Canada with more punitive tariffs. We have just been informed that Canada, a very difficult country to trade with, including the fact that they have charged our farmers as much as 400% tariffs for years on dairy products, has just announced they are putting digital services tax on our American technology companies, which is a blatant and direct attack on our country. They are obviously copying the European Union, which has done the same thing and is currently under discussion with us also. Based on this egregious tax, we are hereby terminating all discussions on trade with Canada, effective immediately. We will let Canada know the tariff that they will be paying to do business with the United States within the next 7-day period. Thank you for your attention in this matter. To this matter. Taco. Taco. Oh shit, UAW just posted a Zohran video.
Hey UAW Region 9A. I want to congratulate us all on an incredible victory on Tuesday night. Our 20,000 New York City UAW members got to work during this campaign. We knocked on doors, we phone banked, we talked to our coworkers, our neighbors, our families, as well as complete strangers. And because of all that time, energy, and effort that we put in, we can now say that Zohran Mamdani will be the Democratic nominee for mayor. I want to take a few minutes today to reflect on what we just accomplished and what's coming next. First, let's remember how this all got started. Back in October of last year, even before the election of Donald Trump in November, we knew the New York City mayor race was going to be a real chance to build a different kind of politics. When Trump won, our task became all the more urgent. We as a region had led labor in multiple letters against the Eric Adams administration, and as the corruption scandals and indictments broke, we knew that 4 more years of Adams meant more of the same politics of corruption that we needed to get past. We had an opportunity to put forward a different vision. We involved hundreds of members to think about an alternative. That vision came to fruition with a politics, as Zohran has said, built on hope. In other words, a politics that puts our issues as working people first. Cost of living, housing, childcare, and transportation. To build this politics, we need a mayor that knew what side they were on. We need new elected leaders who are not afraid to pick a side. Politicians who will put workers over corporate donors every single time. The status quo, led by Democrats and Republicans alike, has not delivered for working class people. No one has had a solution, and few have even had any interest on stopping the race to the bottom. When President Sean Fain and I took office, we were clear that UAW endorsements would be earned. know yet what they'll specifically do, but you should know that this election isn't over. We can't rest until November. So what are we going to do over the next 5 months? As a union, we are going to keep fighting for our future. We are going to keep organizing, we are going to keep taking on contract fights, and we are going to continue to make it clear to our bosses that we mean business, and we are not afraid to strike if necessary. We're also going to work with our fellow unions and bring them in with us in support of Zohran's pro-worker agenda and campaign. We are going to keep the campaign alive to make sure that Zohran Mamdani is the next mayor of New York City. Before I end, I want to recognize the tremendous leadership of Brad Lander. Brad was number 2 on our ballot, and we were also proud to endorse him alongside Zohran. We were clear with both Zohran and Brad at the beginning that we wanted them to run against Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams and not against each other. We expected a cross endorsement, and we wanted them to show the city what a politics of collaboration and friendship across and sometimes despite our differences would look like. And both of these guys rose to the occasion. Brad Lander has always had the UAW's back. He's also been to all of our picket lines and used his power in the city council and the comptroller's office to pressure the bosses to bargain in good faith with us. Brad believes in worker power and he supports organizing. So we will continue to have his back. Thank you, Brad, for setting the example. You're the real deal. 9A, we have the chance to have a mayor that will walk the picket line with us, who will fight for the funding to ensure that we have fast and free buses, universal childcare, someone who will make sure that our publicly funded jobs have what they need so that UAW members can continue to build a life in New York City. So next year, when you're walking on the picket line, when you're submitting that petition to win your union election, when your boss is trying to retaliate against you or threaten mass layoffs, we will know that we have a mayor that has our back, a mayor who will fight for us and walk alongside us. UAW members, it's time to imagine how we build a different kind of city, one where we can win economic justice for all working people.
Well, chat, I'm going to call it there. Pretty amazing feeling. Send y'all over to VO. I was hoping that I was going to be wrong. This weekend, I'm going to be posting on Tickety Talk. So make sure you're following me on TikTok for more exclusive Mike from PA content. So make sure you hit that follow if you're a Tickety Talker. What a week. What a win. What a moment of Mike was right vindication. But let's hope that Mike is going to be wrong about the Democratic Party sabotage. I won't be. And I hope you guys are ready for a long, hard fight through the summer and the fall to get Zohran elected. I want to thank you, everybody, for all the support I got this week. We broke 10,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for all the support. I will see you all tonight for movie night. Don't forget at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And thank you for all the support. I'll see you.